Chapter 141. Overlord Mace Sheds Armor. The Golden Claw God's brow tightened. A complicated expression flickered across his face. He was not without feeling. Zhao Song's stubbornness and conviction earned his respect. But he also knew there was no turning back in this fight. The rise of the Jishou Chamber of Commerce had already become unstoppable. If the Tang sect did not yield, annihilation awaited them. Hallmaster Zhao, your courage is admirable, the Golden Claw God said, his voice calm but edged with a sigh. But courage alone cannot win everything. Have you ever thought whether the Tang sect's 10,000 years of glory are truly worth dying for? Times change. The Tang sect's splendor is gone. Clinging to the past will only lead you to ruin. Silence! Zhao Song roared. His twin maces struck out with ferocious force. Azure spirit power surged like a tide, forming a titanic mace shadow that cleaved toward the Golden Claw God. You young scoundrel, how dare you speak so of the Tang sect? Blood pooled in his throat, but he shouted on, reciting the technique as if invoking fate itself. Iron shadow spans the sky like a dragon, cold gleam piercing the firmament. 1,000 jun of strength rides the arm, wind and thunder rise, shaking the 9 heavens. Shedding blood and sweat moves mountains and rivers. An endless momentum devours thousands of miles. In an instant, a sharp edge darkens the world, all power concentrated within, self-created spirit ability, Overlord Mace. Seeing this, the Golden Claw God ceased further persuasion. He opened his eyes wide and regarded Zhao Song with full respect. This opponent was going all out. Aurora Divine Wind Claw. A level 17 Douluo's battle intent erupted like a storm. Golden light filled the sky, lightning rampant. The Golden Claw God unleashed his Aurora Divine Wind Claw in full. His golden talons sliced dazzling arcs through the air, as if trying to tear the world apart. Each strike carried razor-sharp edge, spirit power coalescing into substance, golden storms that surged straight at Zhao Song. Zhao Song staggered beneath the impact, but did not fall back. He pushed his spirit power to the brink. His twin maces danced an impenetrable storm, each blow like thunder poised to crush the god before him. Blood ran. Flesh was lacerated, his spirit buckled, his armor struggled to hold, his meridians could not sustain his spirit ability. So be it. Let blood run dry, body break, spirit burn out. If the body cannot endure, let it fall. If the meridians cannot hold, let them rupture. Iron shadow spans the sky, cold gleam, wind and thunder, shedding blood and sweat, an endless momentum devouring thousands of miles. The 7 mace forms unleashed at the cost of his life. The momentum he scattered across the world drew in the very currents of the air, forming countless massive vortices. Every strike of Zhao Song's twin maces carried world-shattering force. Wherever they passed, space seemed rent with deafening roars. His eyes burned with a single purpose, as if pouring his entire being into this clash. The Overlord Mace had 8 forms in total, each a brutal, overwhelming technique. Only the final form called upon decades of accumulated malice, killing intent, and dominance, summoning the power of the first 7 forms to stir heaven and earth and then release it all. The 8th form, Overlord Sheds Armor. Zhao Song suddenly lifted his twin maces high. The currents between heaven and earth boiled. The world itself seemed to tremble at his final blow. His body, driven by spirit power, began to disintegrate. Fragments of his battle armor flew off like sparks and turned into specks of starlight, merging with the boundless momentum he unleashed. Overlord Sheds Armor, heaven and earth as mace. His voice rolled like thunder, shaking the sky. The maces in his hands seemed part of heaven and earth, pressed into a single irresistible force, hurtling at the Golden Claw God. This strike condensed his lifelong strength and conviction. It seemed capable of tearing the world in two. A hint of unease flickered across the Golden Claw God's face. He felt the terror of the attack. Zhao Song's 8th form had already surpassed ordinary spirit abilities, even exceeding the limits of a titled Douluo, arriving at something else entirely. Was it comparable to a divine force? The Golden Claw God's fighting intent flared. He met that world-shattering strike with his own full power. His inner battle energy surged without restraint, instantly reaching the pinnacle of this world's might. Zhao Song had been a reckless youth and had suffered hidden injuries for years. Reaching the Super Douluo realm had seemed impossible, and it was only through the Tang sect's profound legacy that he had come this far. Yet to forge a strike pushing toward demigod-level force, this was extraordinary. The world truly teemed with heroes like Leaping Carp, but the Golden Claw God would not be an easy opponent. Aurora Divine Wind Claw, break, he bellowed. His golden claws flashed again, every strike sharper, every storm biting deeper. The two titanic forces collided, and the air itself shuddered under the clash. Meanwhile, Shang Shuhuai's face had gone ashen. His fingers trembled so badly he could hardly hold the communicator. He stared at the soul tool screen Huo Wuji had provided. The flickering images were like knives against the heart. Tang sect branches across the East Sea region were falling one by one. Once proud buildings lay in ruins. Tang sect disciples were being struck down by the Jishou Chamber of Commerce's powerhouses, their spirit power sealed, taken prisoner like lambs to slaughter. You, how dare you? Shang Shuai's voice was a strangled mix of fury and despair. He could not believe the Chamber of Commerce had launched such an open, sweeping purge across the East Sea. The Tang sect had ruled for millennia on the Douluo continent. No one had dared provoke them lightly. And yet, in only half a day, they were being crushed by the Jishou Chamber of Commerce with no means of retaliation. Huo Wuji stood to the side with a faint, satisfied smile, as if watching a spectacle he had expected all along. He shook his head and spoke with quiet mockery. Hallmaster Xiang, your words are touching, but since the Tang sect reached out to interfere with the Jishou Chamber of Commerce, did you truly expect anything else? Were you not arrogant to begin with? Shang Shuhuai's face darkened. Fury blazed in his eyes. You are making an enemy of the entire Tang sect. Huo Wuji's smile didn't waver. Enemies? We were enemies from the start, weren't we? A cunning gleam played in his eyes. If your Tang sect had not been so arrogant, trying to meddle with us, do you think I would have bothered? Everything happening today is the consequence of your choices. Shang Shuhuai trembled, anger and despair warping his features. He knew the Tang sect stood on high ground in reputation, but now it faced an unprecedented crisis. Against a top-tier adversary like the Jishou Chamber of Commerce, they needed to respond swiftly. Huo Wuji, he said, voice forced to stay calm, how long do you think you can keep your pride? Our Tang sect will never forget this, Xiang added coldly. Once our powerhouses gather, we will make sure you never return. Good. Huo Wuji applauded lightly, as if relishing the challenge. I'll be waiting. Before Shang Shuhuai could recover from his humiliation, Huo Wuji gave a crisp order. Bring him out. The updates were complete. 9 chapters had been released today, which left 3 more owed. Thanks went out to Sanya Yangguang, Little Single Guy, and Yaluk's Flowerman Bureau for their generous tips. Popularity bonus update, 127-160, was not met, so no bonus update. Average subscription bonus update, 3533, earned +1 update. Tip bonus update, 22500, earned +4 updates. 3 chapters remained owed. With tomorrow's 3 regular chapters, that made a total of 11 chapters. Damn it, over 10 chapters again. How am I going to write all that? Chapter 142, The East China Sea is in a state of flux. Shang Shuhuai, who had been ignominiously expelled from the Jishou Chamber of Commerce headquarters, wore an expression of deep humiliation. With his spirit power sealed, there was nothing he could do but swallow his bitterness in silence. His immediate priority was to inform the hallmasters of the Tang sect and the vice sect master. He forced down his anger, hurried out of the Jishou Chamber of Commerce's influence, and moved as quickly as his sealed spirit power allowed. He knew he could not resist in his current state. Without spirit power, he was like a beast stripped of claws and fangs, lacking even basic self-preservation. Still, he had to get the news back to Tang sect headquarters, otherwise the sect would suffer irretrievable losses. He swore to himself that no matter what it took, he would make the Jishou Chamber of Commerce pay for what they had done today. Tianhai City, the reception hall of the Jishou Chamber of Commerce branch. Dim, golden light fell like a veil across the silent hall. Heavy tapestries hung on the walls, patterned with a history that spoke of power and long memory. In the center of the room sat a large round table, its polished surface reflecting the chandelier's glow with a chill, formal sheen. Around it, dozens of middle-aged men and elders were seated in impeccable robes, their faces solemn. Yet despite their composed appearance, small tells revealed their unease. Fingers tapped the tabletop. Eyes wandered. Breaths came a little fast. The room was heavy with tension, as if the air itself had thickened. All eyes were fixed on the main seat facing the door. A tall swivel chair sat there, its back curved like the spine of some great beast, radiating an unspoken pressure. Slowly, with a faint mechanical creak, the chair turned. The figure in the main seat was revealed, a boy of about 10. He wore a perfectly tailored white long gown, the fabric as clean and clear as snow. His face was still childlike, every feature finely formed, but his bearing betrayed a depth beyond his years. Most striking were his eyes, crimson gold, burning with a steady, ancient heat that seemed to see through appearances and straight to the heart. Wherever his gaze fell, people felt exposed. Chen Zhou regarded the assembly with a single sweep of that gaze, and the room went still. Even the most domineering figures of the Eastern Sea region seemed to shrink into the chairs beside them, careful now even with their breathing. Chen Zhou carried an air of refined indifference. Every small gesture was precise, and his presence pressed down on the hall like some silent mountain. "Gentlemen," he said. His voice was clear and cool as jade, carrying a natural authority. "I believe today's meeting needs no long introduction." His words landed like hammers. The atmosphere thickened as if with frost. No one dared to speak first. Chen Zhou gave a faint smile, soft as a ripple, but with a cutting edge, and rose with light, quiet steps. He moved to the round table and lightly traced its surface with his fingertips, a subtle sound that seemed to resonate like a bell. "The Douluo continent is changing," he said, his tone calm but impossible to ignore. "You are all intelligent people. You understand the general trend." His words were direct, and they struck at the heart of every person present. Some frowned, some shifted in their seats. No one contradicted him. Chen Zhou's crimson gold eyes flashed like cold steel as he raised a hand, and with a faint motion, the chandeliers dimmed until only his figure remained clearly outlined against the gloom. "I know many of you found the Jisho Chamber of Commerce's actions today unexpected," he continued. "You may call us arrogant, presumptuous, even reckless. Am I wrong?" The question froze the hall. Breath shortened. Faces flushed with discomfort. Nobody looked him in the eye. Those eyes seemed to see their worst fears. Chen Zhou walked to the center of the table, his fingertips producing a crisp tapping sound as they struck the wood. His words were measured, each carrying weight. "Make no mistake, the rise of the Jisho Chamber of Commerce is the trend of the age. You may still bask in past glories, believing that the Tang sect's 10,000-year prestige will endure forever. But today's events have shown that any force resisting the wheels of history will be crushed." He looked over them all. "The Tang sect's branch in the Eastern Sea is a ruin. Do you think that happened by accident? No, it was inevitable. The Jisho Chamber of Commerce's power now exceeds what you imagine. We are not merely a chamber of commerce. We are the leaders of the new era, the rule makers, the masters who will shape the future." The hall felt like it had been plunged into ice. Chen Zhou's words left no room for debate. "You may hesitate, you may wait and watch, hoping for a Tang sect resurgence," he went on, voice sharpening with resolve. "But I will say this plainly, the Tang sect's era is over. From this day forward, the Eastern Sea will have one dominant voice, the voice of the Jisho Chamber of Commerce. Anyone who stands against us will be mercilessly crushed." His declaration rang like thunder. The assembled leaders felt their world tilt under the certainty in his voice. This was not an empty threat, but a statement of fact. Author's note: I'm very sorry, readers. I had a stomachache today, sharp and relentless, so I only managed to write 6 chapters tonight and still owe you 5 more. Thank you for your patience and understanding. Special thanks to Rimuru Darren, Nemesis Darren, and Broken Bridge Misty Rain Darren for the rewards. Tomorrow's extra updates. Popularity extra update, 370. +1 update. Average subscription extra update, 3734. +1 update. Reward extra update, 808 500. +1 update. I owe 5 chapters, plus the usual 3 chapters, plus these 3 extra updates, 11 chapters in total. Thank you all for your continued support. Chapter 143. Is it right just because it's always been this way? The Jisho Chamber of Commerce's power was already overwhelming. The Tang sect's carefully laid plan had been completely turned against them. The distant battle had died down, and the large-scale arrests of Tang sect members in progress made it clear the Tang sect's meticulously arranged scheme had been fully exploited by the Jisho chamber. A crushing defeat, a total rout. The Tang sect in the East Sea region was finished. Now, there are only two paths before you. Chen Zhou's voice cooled, but it carried an irresistible force. Surrender and become part of the Jisho Chamber of Commerce and reap the glory of the new era, or resist and be ground into dust by history, utterly obliterated. The choice is yours, but time is short. His gaze swept across the hall, his crimson gold eyes cold and unyielding. The look felt like it could pierce into people's souls and expose their deepest fears. Everyone present understood he wasn't offering real choice, he was forcing a decision. The reception hall fell into a frozen silence. Even the air seemed to have hardened. No one dared to speak first. They all knew that either option would irrevocably change their fate. Surrender meant giving up independence and dignity, becoming pawns of the Jisho chamber, aligned against the Tang sect. Resistance meant facing the Jisho chamber's merciless onslaught with no chance of success. Outside the hall, countless unhidden mental forces had already locked on to each of them. Any sudden movement, from a family head, a chamber president, or a city lord, would be met with instant death. Faced with Chen Zhou's cold stare and absolute authority, they understood that resistance was futile. The Jisho chamber's strength exceeded their worst imaginings, even surpassing the Tang sect at its peak. They could neither fight it nor escape the current of history. At last, a middle-aged man in a sumptuous robe rose slowly. His face was pale. Beads of sweat dotted his forehead. He inhaled deeply, trying to steady his voice, though it trembled lightly. President Chen, I am willing to lead my family to join the Jisho Chamber of Commerce and serve under you. His words hit like a stone dropped into a still lake. Ripples spread instantly. All eyes turned to him with mixed expressions. He was the president of the Tianhai Chamber of Commerce, one of the largest and most influential bodies in the East Sea region, who had always commanded respect. And yet now he bowed his head like a supplicant before a mere 10-year-old boy. Chen Zhou smiled faintly, satisfaction flickering in his crimson gold eyes. He inclined his head once. Very good. The addition of the Tianhai Chamber will bring resources and strength to the Jisho Chamber. A wise choice. When the Tianhai president declared his surrender, others quickly followed. They knew that hesitation would cost them their last chance. With the killing intent still present, but receding its immediacy, these once proud figures felt a measure of relief, as if someone had pulled them back from the edge of death. They lowered their heads and avoided meeting Chen Zhou's gaze, as if paying homage to their future master. Chen Zhou stood before the round table, his look sweeping the newly submitted dignitaries. The faint, inscrutable smile remained on his face, as if everything already lay within his grasp. Don't worry, gentlemen. You will see that joining the Jisho Chamber of Commerce is the right decision. It doesn't need time to prove itself. It can prove itself now. He waved a hand and produced 3 test tubes from his storage spirit tool, placing them on the table. The fluids, white, yellow, and green, caught every eye the instant they appeared. The liquids glimmered with mystery and power. Even a single glance stirred a deep, almost instinctual craving, like a call in the blood, a resonance in the soul. Desire rose in the hall, as if the reagents reached down into their genes. Chen Zhou picked up the white tube and held it up. His voice was clear and firm. These 3 potions are the first gifts the Jisho Chamber gives you. They represent power, wisdom, and life, the key to the new era and the guarantee of your future. His words thundered through the room. Everyone stared at the vials with greed in their eyes. These were not ordinary people. They were heads of families, chamber presidents, deans, core city officials, positions attained through influence, methods, and most importantly, strength. None of them had spirit power cultivation below the spirit emperor level. They understood the allure that rose from their spirits, a longing that almost drove them mad. Considering the Supreme Research Group's close ties to the Jisho Chamber, and the steady stream of operatives above Spirit King level whose origins were unknown, it was not hard for their imaginations to run wild. This is a world of spirit masters, and spirit masters are always a minority. Because of that, civilian spirit tools have seen little real breakthrough or spread. Why invest massively in technologies useless to the Spirit Master minority? The system has been this way for 10,000 years, and it persisted for millennia. Technology serves the few, and the rest of society stagnates. Chen Zhou, as a scholar, judged this wrong. He believed the world should not be dominated by a tiny elite, nor be driven only by their desires and avarice. A cold light flashed in his eyes. His crimson-gold gaze burned with restrained fury, rage at the old world and yearning for a new one. Author's note: I'm very sorry, everyone. I had a stomachache today, sharp, like a blender running, and only managed to write 6 chapters, so I still owe you 5. Thank you to Lord Rimuru, Lord Nemesis, and Lord Broken Bridge Rain for your generous tips. Tomorrow's extra updates: popularity bonus update, 193-170, plus 1 update, average subscription bonus update, 3734, plus 1 update. Tip bonus update, 808, plus 1 update. Owing 5 chapters plus the basic 3 and the 3 bonus chapters above, a total of 11 chapters will be updated. Thank you all for your continued support. Chapter 144, Awakening, Enlightenment, Sublimation, Everyone. Chen Zhou's voice rang out slowly, clear and cool as jade, but carrying an undeniable force. I know many of you are still clinging to past certainties, believing the world of Spirit Masters must be one where the strong rule and the weak bow. But that is not how this world should be. Technology shouldn't be a toy only for Spirit Masters. It should belong to everyone, to every corner of this world. His words fell like thunder, scattering through the hall. Faces shifted, expressions tightening, a complex mix of shock and incredulity flashing in many eyes. No one here had ever heard anything like it. No one had imagined technology could be taken out of the exclusive hands of Spirit Masters. Chen Zhou picked up the white test tube, gently shaking it. Under the lights, the liquid inside shimmered with an odd glow. His tone stayed calm but authoritative. This potion is called Awakening. Its purpose is simple. It gives ordinary people the chance to become Spirit Masters. If you drink it, it guarantees a 1-level increase in innate spirit power. It will not work on those whose innate spirit power is already above level 3. The yellow potion is called Enlightenment. It represents a 2-level increase and is limited to those whose innate spirit power is no higher than level 4. The green potion is Sublimation. It raises innate spirit power by 3 levels and can only be used on those with innate spirit power no higher than level 5. When Chen Zhou finished, the reception hall fell into stunned silence. Every eye fixed on the white test tube. Disbelief and hope warred across the faces of the assembled dignitaries. How is this possible? An elderly man in luxurious robes suddenly demanded, standing as if the words had forced him up. He was the dean of Hailu Academy, second only to Tianhai Academy in the East Sea region, and a spirit saint in power. Letting ordinary people awaken spirit power, the idea was beyond incredible. It was almost sacrilegious. And yet the little vial in Chen Zhou's hand claimed just that. The other leaders in attendance stared hard at the test tube as if it were a relic that could rewrite their fate. For them, spirit awakening had always been decided by bloodline and talent, things ordinary folk could never touch. Chen Zhou's words shattered that assumption. President Chen, you mean this is real? A middle-aged man in a silver-gray robe asked, voice trembling. He was the head of Glorious Group, the largest civilian mecha manufacturer in the region. The possibility made his breath hitch. Chen Zhou smiled faintly, steady and solemn. Yes, the research team of the Supreme Research Group, after years of study, has finally broken the bottleneck of spirit awakening. These potions are the result. He turned the test tube so the light caught it again. The awakening trials are complete. Its effect is stable and based on our tests, without side effects. The words hit like an explosion. Every person in the hall leaned forward as if to snatch the future itself. Spirit awakening for ordinary people had long been a fantasy. To these power holders, spirit power was the bedrock of their control. If Chen Zhou spoke the truth, these potions could rearrange the entire world order and topple entrenched hierarchies. A new era. That thought rose in every mind. And those in this room, by virtue of being present, could be the first to ride that wave to fame and legacy. The temptation to seize a place in history was almost palpable. President Chen, please explain the mechanism in detail. said a man in a black robe who rose. He led Tiangong Group, the region's largest spirit tool manufacturer, and usually had networks and influence at his command. Now he sounded cautious, his curiosity taut with ambition. Chen Zhou nodded. The awakening potion activates latent spirit genes in the body via a special catalyst, allowing them to meet the threshold for awakening. Enlightenment and sublimation further strengthen those genes, enabling larger jumps in spirit power. These potions have been through multiple trials to ensure their safety. His explanation flowed like clear water, easing many doubts. Still, skepticism lingered. "Can we witness it?" An old man in a purple robe asked, rising. He was patriarch of the Purple Cloud family, the largest spirit master clan in Ling City, his rank a spirit Douluo. His tone was probing. He did not yet fully believe. Chen Zhou's smile sharpened. Of course. At his cue, the doors threw open, and a pair of lighted rows of attendants stepped forward, formations gleaming like a prelude to hope. Personnel from the Jisho Chamber of Commerce brought in a trembling middle-aged man. He shuffled forward with hands that shook, eyes wide with fear. He was Li Tian, an ordinary porter who worked in a Jisho Chamber of Commerce spirit tool store in Tianhai City. Few ordinary people became official employees of the Jisho Chamber of Commerce. The benefits were high, the treatment rare. And because the chamber dealt in spirit tools, it had never explicitly excluded those without spirit power. That morning, the store manager had asked Li Tian if he wanted to try becoming a spirit master. A spirit master, who among those born on the Douluo continent didn't dream of that before 6. Could a 48-year-old porter ever become one? The sensible answer would have been to laugh and refuse. It had to be a trick, a cruel joke. Still, what if it wasn't? Reality had taught Li Tian to be cautious. He had long buried his hopes beneath reason. Yet now, standing in the reception hall with a vial of liquid glowing in the founder's hand, the impossible seemed to tremble within reach. Author's note: I'm sorry, everyone. I had a bad stomachache today, a severe one, and came home to plain porridge. I managed to write 6 chapters this evening, so I still owe you 5 chapters. Thanks very much to Rimuru Douluo, Nemesis Douluo, and Broken Bridge Misty Rain Douluo for their rewards. Tomorrow's extra updates. Popularity extra update, 193.70, plus 1 update. Average subscription extra update, 34, plus 1 update. Reward extra update, 808,500, plus 1 update. I owe 5 chapters, plus 3 regular updates, and the 3 extra updates mentioned above, 11 chapters in total. Thank you all for your continued support. Chapter 145, The Root of Innate Spirit Power. Li Tian had been born into poverty. His parents' constant struggle to survive taught him early that to change his fate, he would have to work 10 times harder than others. He had always dreamed of becoming a spirit master, but he lacked spirit power. His dream felt like a bright star, beautiful, but forever out of reach. Was he to abandon that dream? Standing in the dazzling hall of the Jisho Chamber of Commerce, summoned by them today, Li Tian felt equal parts hopeful and terrified. If he could awaken, his 3 children could go to academies and learn trades instead of being forced into factories or the fields after finishing basic schooling. The idea steadied him. When Chen Zhou finally appeared and looked him over, Li Tian's heart pounded like thunder. Chen Zhou's expression was faint but unreadable. He held a white test tube in his hand and walked toward Li Tian. "This is the chance you've been waiting for, Li Tian," he said softly. "Drink this potion, and your spirit will awaken. You'll gain innate spirit power. Are you ready?" For a moment, Li Tian could hardly believe it. He looked at Chen Zhou, crimson gold eyes that were calm and deep, full of contained power and possibility. He drew in a steadying breath and nodded. "I'm ready. I want to become a spirit master." Chen Zhou's smile was slight as he handed the test tube over. Li Tian's hand trembled as he took it, feeling the weight of the moment. He brought the vial to his lips, inhaled, and swallowed. The liquid scorched his throat like flame and then rushed through him as a hot torrent. A small cry escaped him as a wave of dizziness rolled over his senses. It felt as if countless whispers filled his mind. His body trembled, as if something invisible was struggling and rearranging inside, and his nerve endings echoed with thousands of spirit power fluctuations. He felt as if he were in a dream. Chen Zhou watched quietly, the torch of his gaze silent and precise. The hall's dignitaries held their breath, watching this ordinary man with expectations in their eyes. Chen Zhou was an alchemist, and he possessed the original energy Amethyst, an alchemical catalyst capable of releasing vast amounts of pure energy. His concoctions could truly transform decay into miracle. He had not meant to fish for anything big when he entered the Tianhai Alliance competition, but the Tang sect's sudden involvement had given him an unexpected opportunity, a major recruit. Plans that had been tentative were now accelerated. He wanted to support East Sea Academy, spark a spirit tool revolution, overhaul Spirit Master education, even push for a transformation across Douluo Star. In a struggle for dominance, speed mattered. Chen Zhou didn't believe East Sea Academy could challenge an entrenched power like Shrek Academy alone. He needed allies. New regional factions were worth winning over. The Awakening, Enlightenment, and Sublimation potions were straightforward in origin, alchemical formulas Chen Zhou had personally developed. To become a spirit master, one had to awaken a spirit and acquire innate spirit power. But why did spirit masters need innate spirit power to cultivate? Chen Zhou had spent years probing that question. Under the peculiar laws of Douluo Star, spiritual energy between heaven and earth behaves like highly active particles, easy to awaken. Simple meditation could draw spiritual energy into the body, allowing one to cultivate spirit power and store it in the Dantian. Everyone on Douluo Star had a spirit, so why didn't everyone possess innate spirit power? Chen Zhou's research had shown that innate spirit power was largely determined by a special meridian network running through the limbs and bones, a set of channels connecting a dormant Dantian to the body's meridians. At birth, every person carried a breath of innate qi, and during gestation, that special meridian was formed. Maternal nutrition, parental spirit conflicts, and the parent's own levels of innate spirit power all affected how that meridian developed in the womb. It could atrophy or expand. By the time a spirit awakened and the Dantian opened, the channels were essentially fixed. The amount of innate spirit power one received depended on how much active spiritual energy from the world could be channeled into the Dantian and how robust that special meridian could handle it. If the meridian was wide and strong, talent would be extraordinary. If it was narrow and fragile, talent would be low. If the meridian had atrophied almost to nothing, the influx of spiritual energy at awakening could shatter it, causing it to collapse into the Dantian and leaving no functional innate pathways. This was why some people awakened a spirit but had no innate spirit power at all. Once set, this structure couldn't be changed without a significant stroke of fortune or a rare opportunity. This explained the common misconception among many spirit masters that talent was purely a matter of noble bloodlines. Chen Zhou had been frustrated for years by how the world overlooked basic theory and foundational science. Instead of studying anatomy and the mechanics of spiritual cultivation, institutions relied heavily on spirit masters as healers and let medical and scientific knowledge stagnate. That insular focus created blind spots and kept society trapped in repeating patterns, halting broader progress that might have propelled Douluo Star far beyond its current state. If people paid attention to the underlying structures, the meridians, embryology of spirit formation, the physiological basis of innate spirit power, the development of the world would be different. But entrenched power and pride meant discoveries were often hidden, misattributed, or hoarded as prestige. Chen Zhou's alchemy and his research into the roots of innate spirit power were attempts to break that cycle and offer a different path forward. Meanwhile, after the East Sea Legion's patrol squadron was newly assigned to the Jishou Chamber of Commerce, Purple Armor had quietly supplied Chen Zhou and Huotian Shu with numerous research subjects, some spirit masters, some ordinary folk, allowing Chen Zhou to observe a wide range of cases. The results confirmed his theory about the special meridian's central role in innate spirit power. As Li Tian's internal struggle stabilized, the hall watched the aftermath of the potion. What would it mean for him? For East Sea Academy? For the slow-moving, tradition-bound societies of Douluo Star? Only time would tell. But for now, in that brilliant chamber, one ordinary man had chosen to swallow a chance, and a network of ancient, hidden structures beneath the flesh and bone had been reconsidered by one man who intended to change how the world understood spirit. Author's note: I'm sorry, readers. Today I'm sick with a stomach ailment that feels like a blender. I came home, had some thin porridge, and managed to write only 6 chapters tonight, so I still owe you 5. Thank you to Boss Rimuru, Boss Nemesis, and Boss Broken Bridge Misty Rain for their rewards. Tomorrow's bonus updates. Popularity bonus 190/70 plus 1 chapter. Average subscription bonus 37 plus 1 chapter. Reward bonus 808/500 plus 1 chapter. Owing 5 chapters plus the regular 3 and the 3 bonus chapters above, that makes 11 chapters to be updated. Thank you all for your continued support. Chapter 146, Both the Great Flood and the Ark. Ah! Li Tian's cry tore through the entrance as a whirlwind of energy radiated from him. Chen Zhou watched with bright anticipation and excitement. Something world-shaking was happening inside Li Tian. His body glowed as if lit from within. The reception hall seemed to tremble. He felt the spirit power that had long slept in him begin to stir, an urgent, surging strength moving through his limbs and bones. Meridians that had been faint suddenly expanded, forming clear channels from his dantian, where his spirit resided, through his body. He found himself drawing in the world's spiritual energy as if surrounded by a great river. A torrent of spirit power flowed into his dantian, swelling and accumulating. Li Tian's eyes hardened with resolve, and a courage he had never known filled his chest. He felt a confidence that made him want to shout, "It's done! I've done it!" What to the onlookers was only a small fluctuation in spirit power was, for Li Tian, the turning point for his family's future, the realization of a lifelong dream. His shout rang like a clear bell through the hall. He no longer saw himself as an ordinary, unremarkable man, but as a spirit master who might change his fate. The dignitaries around him cheered, their faces full of eager expectation. Quick, let him demonstrate. The call sent an extra ripple of excitement through the crowd. Li Tian's chest swelled with pride. He straightened automatically, hungry to show what he could do. Yes, let's see what his spirit is, another voice urged. Chen Zhou smiled and waved his hand. The hall fell quiet at his gesture. His voice carried like a guiding light, touching the hopes of everyone present. Since everyone is eager, let Li Tian demonstrate his spirit. Li Tian closed his eyes and focused. With a single thought, he summoned the spirit he had not called upon in decades, an ordinary sickle. If someone had lived 10,000 years ago, such a spirit might have been useful for farming. In the city, where Li Tian had worked long hours on assembly lines, a sickle seemed absurdly worthless. And yet, holding it now, feeling its link to his blood and soul, he wept with joy. He had not felt this way in years. The dream he had nearly buried within himself stirred alive. As a trickle of spirit power flowed into the sickle, it shimmered with flecks of light. "It really is spirit power," someone breathed. "It's a spirit master's spirit," another exclaimed. The crowd stared in shocked disbelief. Li Tian felt endless power in his hands. The sickle was warm and responsive, and the river of spirit that flowed through it fanned the spark of hope in him into a blaze. He smiled, half in astonishment, half in relief. "I really have become a spirit master. I really can change my destiny," he murmured. Chen Zhou's eyes burned with satisfaction. He understood the meaning of this moment. Li Tian's awakening was more than an individual's breakthrough. It was proof of the Jishou Chamber of Commerce's technological prowess and a sign of opportunity for countless ordinary people. "Everyone," Chen Zhou called, standing tall before the jubilant crowd. Li Tian's success marks the beginning of the Jishou Chamber of Commerce's great technological innovation. It marks the start of a new wave of progress across the world. You, all of you, will be legends recorded in future histories. You will be an indispensable part of this era. His words rolled through the hall like thunder. The dignitaries were speechless, faces flushed with joy, throats tight with unspoken words. Hope, awe, and disbelief surged through them. Chen Zhou clapped once more as Li Tian was led away, the newly awakened man repeatedly kowtowing and thanking Chen Zhou like a savior. Slowly, the large doors closed, dimming the sunlight. In the subdued light, spirit power glowed in people's eyes, red-orange, golden-yellow, emerald-green, colors that expressed the same 3 emotions: respect, longing, fervor. From the moment Li Tian's spirit was revealed, Chen Zhou stood before them all like a beacon. The Jishou Chamber of Commerce, once known mainly for military might and advanced spirit tools, now looked like a Noah's Ark, capable of both unleashing a flood that would wash away the old order and building the Ark to rescue and reorganize society. Who would board that Ark and step into the new era? Daifanji, I swear to serve the young master until death. First Elder Daifanji fell to one knee, head bowed in submission. His old eyes, usually clouded, shone with a new clarity. He had spent his life reading the wind and the tides. Now he wanted to stake everything on this change. When Daifanji pledged himself, the hall ignited like a barrel of gunpowder. Everyone looked at him at once, shock mingled with resentment and irritation. The first elder had moved before they did. They had been so caught up in excitement, they'd missed the chance to be first. Anger at themselves burned stronger than any admiration for Daifanji. The lesson was clear. The Jisho Chamber of Commerce, led by Chen Zhou, had become the power to follow. Author's note, sorry for the brief detour and uneven pacing at the end. Today I wasn't feeling well. Thanks to Rimuru, Nemesis, and Broken Bridge Misty Rain for their support and rewards. Tomorrow's bonus updates. Popularity bonus, 193 through 170, plus 1 chapter. Average subscription bonus, 3734, plus 1 chapter. Reward bonus, 808 500, plus 1 chapter. I owe 5 chapters. With the 3 regular chapters and the 3 bonus chapters above, I'll update 11 chapters in total. Thank you all for your continued support. Chapter 147, Swearing an Oath. Everyone present was sharp-eyed. Whether it was Bibaishan or the Golden Claw God, none of them regarded Chen Zhou's position as merely an heir. But that didn't matter now. What mattered was not being the last to pledge loyalty. Ma Yunzhang swears to serve the young master unto death. Chai Ruiyuan swears to serve the young master unto death. Cheng Luochen swears to serve the young master unto death. Spirit emperors, spirit saints, even spirit Douluo-level powerhouses scrambled to submit to a boy barely 10 years old and only at the spirit elder level. In their eyes, he was no longer simply a child. Who could unleash a great flood and restore order? Who could be the Noah's Ark of a shattered world and still be an ordinary mortal? They saw the architect of a new era, the leader of history, the master of the future. Chen Zhou's existence had exceeded their imagination and even their conception of power. He was genius bordering on miracle. Shouts filled the hall, each name a resounding oath, every oath hot as blood. All eyes were fixed on Chen Zhou, waiting for his answer, waiting for his blessing. Chen Zhou stood in the center, calm as still water but carrying an undeniable majesty. In the dim light, his figure seemed especially tall, an unshakable mountain that pressed on the hearts of all present. His crimson gold eyes swept over the kneeling dignitaries, and the corner of his mouth curved into a faint, meaningful smile. Gentlemen, his voice was clear and cool as jade, carrying weight. I accept your loyalty. The winds and clouds of the world belong to our generation. I hope we can step into a new future together. Zhou is willing to struggle alongside all of you. His words were like thunder, detonating in every ear. Calm though his tone, each sentence struck as if carved into their souls. The hall erupted. Faces shone with fervor and reverence as Chen Zhou slowly raised a hand and plucked at the air, like plucking the strings of fate. At that gesture, the lights in the hall brightened. The dim yellow glow gave way to a dazzling radiance. The whole space seemed to come alive, and in that light, Chen Zhou appeared taller still, like a god descended to the mortal world. Qiao Chengyun, who had been a step slow earlier, stepped forward and knelt again. Having received the Lord's grace, Qiao Chengyun is deeply moved and pledges unwavering loyalty. I am a humble servant, and I will repay the Lord's favor with every effort. The Lord's radiance is like sun and moon. This servant will guard him like the stars. I will be shield with this body and sword with this heart, protecting the Lord, aiding the nation, dedicating myself utterly until death. His florid, over-the-top rhetoric, thick brows and wide eyes delivering lines that sounded rehearsed and almost comical, was the stone that set the pond rippling. It broke the pause in the hall and sparked a fresh wave of oaths. Nobody wanted to be outdone. Everyone scrambled for new words and stronger promises. Lord, this old official follows the Lord through fire and water. A trembling white-haired man swore loudly, tears glinting in his eyes, voice full of piety and resolve. Lord, The Li family will serve the Lord even unto death. Lord, the Wang family will expand the Lord's territory, 100 deaths without regret. Lord, the Sun family will clear obstacles for the Lord and follow him to the end. The hall became a chorus of fanatic devotion. Every voice burned with loyalty, as if every soul were being offered to the boy before them. Faces were fixed on Chen Zhou, eyes bright with adoration. Chen Zhou laughed, part amusement, part exasperation, and with a wave of his hand, a gentle breeze helped everyone to their feet. He then returned to the main seat and sat facing the door. One by one, storage spirit tools appeared and floated to rest before the gathered dignitaries. Take these, he said. Use them to convince your clansmen, colleagues, and subordinates. Within one day, I want all 38 cities of the East Sea under my control. The words struck like an order, setting alarm bells in everyone's mind. They looked down at the storage spirit tools, expressions shifting from complexity to fanaticism and resolve. Chen Zhou's command was clear. Return with these tools, persuade everyone to side completely with the Jishou Chamber of Commerce, and submit to his rule. He wanted all 38 East Sea cities in one day, a bold, audacious goal, but none present doubted he had the power and will to pull it off. They had seen enough to believe. Each of them had only one thought: follow Chen Zhou and help shape the new era. Understood, Lord. Voices rose in unison like a torrent. Hands reached out and took the storage spirit tools, eyes blazing with determination. Chen Zhou nodded once, crimson gold gaze sweeping over them, a cold glint flashing. Remember, time is short. You have one day. Anyone who delays or defies will face the consequences. His words struck deep. He wasn't making a threat so much as stating an unchangeable fact. The Jishou Chamber of Commerce already had enough power to make resistance futile. Heads lowered, no one dared meet his eyes, but their resolves were set. Whatever it took, they would finish the task within the allotted day. Chen Zhou waved, dismissing them. The dignitaries rose, saluted respectfully, and departed the reception hall in haste. Once the last of them had gone, silence fell again. Chen Zhou sat in the main seat, gaze deep and thoughtful, as if weighing the days to come. I am very sorry, everyone. I had a bad stomachache today, sharp like a blender churning in my gut. I came home in the evening, ate some thin porridge, and tried to write, but managed only 6 chapters. I still owe you 5 chapters. Dear readers, I am truly sorry. Thank you for the rewards from Lord Rimuru, Lord Nemesis, and Lord Broken Bridge Misty Rain. Tomorrow's bonus updates. Popularity bonus update 19370 plus 1 chapter. Average subscription bonus update 3734 plus 1 chapter. Reward bonus update 808,500 plus 1 chapter. Owing 5 chapters plus the basic 3 chapters and the 3 bonus chapters above makes a total of 11 chapters in tomorrow's update. Thank you all for your continued support. Chapter 148. Who the heck said the East Sea is a low-end game? After everyone left, the great hall lay quiet. Chen Zhou leaned back slowly in the soft chair, waiting in silence. The door exploded inward with a bang. The golden claw god strode in, his golden hair flowing and his face composed. In his arms was Zhao Song, the same man who had been shouting just moments before. But he was nothing like the furious elder lion he'd shown earlier. Now all 4 of his limbs were severed at the roots, his hair in disarray. He looked pitiful and broken. There was no sign of a brutal struggle. The only unusual thing about the Golden Claw God was the faint tang of the sea clinging to him. For the Golden Claw God, Zhao Song was simply too weak. If the beast hadn't been making the awkward adjustments of fighting in a human body, he wouldn't have needed to trade blows at all. The Aurora Divine Windclaw is one of the Beast Clan's most lethal, fastest, ultimate techniques, second only to the Tiger Leopard tribe's War King. Even constrained by a human shell, the Golden Claw God was already a top-tier force among the beasts. Facing Zhao Song was child's play. Zhao Song's ruin was the result of a few casual moves. Chen Zhou lifted his eyes and let his gaze sweep from the Golden Claw God to Zhao Song. A faint smile touched his lips, but he showed no surprise. Everything had gone exactly as he expected. He knew the Golden Claw God's strength, and he knew Zhao Song's fate had already been sealed. "You've done well," Chen Zhou said quietly, approval in his tone. The Golden Claw God inclined his head and casually dropped Zhao Song onto the marble floor, as if discarding a sack. The body hit the stone with a dull thud. Blood leaked from the severed stumps, slowly staining the tiles, but Zhao Song could not even force out a cry. He lay there, eyes full of terror and despair. Chen Zhou rose and walked over, looking down at him with an indifferent chill, as though observing something already dead. "Zhao Song," he said, cool and controlled, "you once mattered, but you chose the wrong path. Or rather, the Tang sect chose the wrong path." Zhao Song's lips twitched. He tried to speak, but could only moan weakly. Regret and reluctance clouded his eyes, but it was already too late. From the beginning, everything Chen Zhou had shown, his talents, his ultimate technique, had been part of a plan. Whoever moved today, all the Tang sect's pawns and tendrils in the East Sea region had to be wiped out. The Tang sect had walked straight into it. Chen Zhou's gaze cut through him like a blade. Zhao Song's breathing faltered. Blood spread into a blooming red pool. His eyes dimmed as death closed in. Chen Zhou stood over him like a judge passing sentence. "The Tang sect has been far too arrogant," Chen Zhou said, a threat of scorn in his voice. He crouched, pinched Zhao Song's chin, and forced him to meet his eyes. Was the Tang sect arrogant? Maybe. But more than that, they'd misjudged the Jishou Chamber of Commerce. Who would have imagined that a Chamber of Commerce that had just allied with the East Sea Legion could, within months, produce so many spirit emperors and spirit kings? A mid to high-tier fighting force, not inferior to the Tang sect, a pillar power with a 10,000-year pedigree? Who the heck said the East Sea was a low-end game? Zhao Song's gaze slid past Chen Zhou to the Golden Claw God standing like a guardian beside him. A flash of despair crossed his face. He had no way to overturn this. The Golden Claw, God's strength exceeded every estimate the Tang sect had made about the Jishou Chamber of Commerce. That so-called minor merchant guild had been hiding terrifying power. A steady stream of mid-tier combatants, a Golden Claw God comparable to a Limit Douluo or even a demigod, and a young master orchestrating it all from the shadows. If only he'd been less rash. Chen Zhou's lips curved. Triumph and contempt mingled in his eyes. "Zhao Song, you and the Tang sect think you rule this world because of the weight you've accumulated over the years. You never noticed that the age has already changed." He turned to the window. The East Sea threw itself against the reefs with a steady roar, as if mocking Zhao Song's folly. The Golden Claw God remained silent, awaiting orders. Today's mission had been simple for him: shatter the Tang sect's confidence in this operation. He respected fighters, but his loyalty to Chen Zhou came first. So he had crushed everything about the man who'd opposed them, eradicating his pride and courage as a grim greeting. "Take him away for treatment," Chen Zhou ordered. "Keep him under strict watch. Don't give him any chance to take his own life." He watched Zhao Song, lying helpless with limbs severed, eyes reflecting the blackness at the edge of death. Chen Zhou felt nothing. Zhao Song was a pawn whose usefulness had ended. The door closed behind those who would carry him off. After a long pause, the Golden Claw God finally spoke. "My lord, can those people truly be trusted?" Before coming inside, he'd already demolished everything Zhao Song had, stripped him almost to the brink of death. And he'd seen the scene in the reception hall. East Sea dignitaries fawning one moment, then scrambling to pledge allegiance the next. They had bent and begged like supplicants, offering up resources and connections as if their skins were on the line. Chen Zhou smiled, a confident, unhurried curve. "Golden Claw God, you may be superior in strategy and warfare, but in reading people, I am the expert. Their fear and greed make everything in this world so simple. Push them to the brink, and they'll clutch at any straw. Give them the illusion of a bright future, and they'll rush into that light like moths." He sat down and watched the Golden Claw God, who brooded in thought. Of course, Chen Zhou could tell what was on his mind. Chapter 149, Fuck It. The former machine beast world had prized loyalty, courage, and fearlessness above all. The machine race prized unity and endurance. Though there had always been betrayals and conspiracies even there, integrity remained the mainstream value for both races. That was why Golden Claw God had expected the human world to be a similar contest of survival with clearer rules. But after taking human form and following Chen Zhou into the human world, what he'd seen and heard shattered that assumption. Greed, cunning, treachery, endless power plays all left Golden Claw God unsettled. He had thought humans were merely another variant of the contests he knew. The longer he stayed with Chen Zhou, the more he realized the human world was far more complex. There were no clear rules, no absolute loyalty. Trust itself seemed a luxury. Golden Claw God stood silent for a long moment, then asked, "My lord, I don't understand. Why do humans betray their companions so easily? Why do they discard principles for profit? In the machine beast world, traitors are despised, expelled, they have no place to stand. But here, betrayal seems common, even a means of survival." Chen Zhou chuckled, a deeper light flashing in his eyes. He rose slowly and moved to the window, staring out at the restless East Sea as if weighing something unseen. After a while, he turned back, voice steady and deliberately cold. "Golden Claw God, what you call loyalty and betrayal are rules of the machine beast world. In the human world, rules are written by the strong. Loyalty and betrayal are chains for the weak and tools for the powerful. There is no absolute good or evil here, only the game of interests and power." He paused, then continued. "Those people who swear allegiance to me do so not out of some noble loyalty, but because the trade-off benefits them. They see something greater, status, wealth, security, and they cling to it. They're afraid of losing what they have, so they bind themselves to me. Human nature is driven by greed and fear." Golden Claw God's brow knit. He did not seem entirely satisfied. "My lord, if the human world is so chaotic, why do we continue to engage with it? The machine beast world, cruel as it was, had rules and beliefs. What I see here is endless scheming and betrayal." Chen Zhou smiled, calculating. "You're wrong to see that as a drawback. It's precisely the chaos and filth of this world that gives us the greatest opportunity. The machine beast world's rules were simple, but they also limited you. Everything served war. A world that only lives for war has no future. In this dirty world, we can turn human greed and fear into a ladder. Think, without those weaknesses, how could we, in mere months, grow from a small Jisho Chamber of Commerce into one of the most powerful forces in the East Sea?" Golden Claw God fell quiet, considering. Is it not simply human infighting that made this possible? Chen Zhou's expression was almost indulgent. The cooperation of the East Sea Legion, the compromises by the Tianhai Alliance, the fracturing among rival teams. There are countless causes. We exploit them. We don't need every traitor or bot agent to be loyal. We only need to understand the general movements and weak points. Arrogance and pride need absolute strength to be enforced, and coincidentally, the Jisho Chamber of Commerce now has that strength. Golden Claw God's gaze slowly cleared, resolve returning. "I understand, my lord, but human cunning and unpredictability are more complex than I imagined. I am not certain we can control all of it." Chen Zhou clapped him on the shoulder. "You don't need to worry. No matter how complex the human world becomes, we hold the strongest power. You, Huo Wuji, and the machine beast warriors are the core of that power. So long as you stand with us, no plot or treachery will shake our foundation." Golden Claw God's eyes hardened. "I will follow you, my lord. I will clear every obstacle." Speed mattered. In a single day, the Tang Sect's East Sea branch, which had stood for thousands of years, was nearly uprooted. Those who'd once thought themselves clever enough to defect found their treachery turned back upon them. Machine beast warriors weren't easily swayed or bought. The chamber didn't need traitors to feed it details, only to map the general movements of the Jisho Chamber of Commerce. The Tang sect didn't need bought informants to hand over core techniques. They only wished to locate the branch's hidden site. Both sides were arrogant and proud, but arrogance and pride require brute strength to sustain, and the Jisho Chamber had that strength now. "Huo Wuji, what the hell?" The door to Huo Wuji's office exploded open. Shui Shuheng strode in like an enraged beast, dragging 3 black-armored machine beast guard members who had tried to hold him back. His titled Douluo aura was unleashed. He slammed the door shut behind him, then pushed the guards aside. "Close the door. The rest of you, leave." Huo Wuji watched him warily. He'd expected the commander of the East Sea Legion to come demanding answers. He just hadn't expected a door to be demolished in the process. The machine beast guards, signaled, released him with the dignity of soldiers, and reinstalled a spare door panel pulled from a spirit tool before retreating respectfully. Shui Shuheng's face was a map of burned years. Preparing this reform had taken everything out of him. He planted both hands on Huo Wuji's desk and slammed them down, each word like a flint. "What the hell, Huo Wuji? I want an explanation." "I heard you," Huo Wuji said, rubbing his temple in mild annoyance. His casual tone only stoked Shui Shuheng's fury. "What matter do you want me to explain?" "How dare you ask me that?" Shui Shuheng roared, banging the table so hard the cups trembled. "Don't you know what the Jishou Chamber of Commerce did today?" Huo Wuji remained unhurried. He even took his time, pouring a cup of tea, sipped it, then regarded Shui Shuheng with a calm smile. "Old Shui, don't be so worked up. Sit down and speak slowly. Getting that angry won't do your health any good." "How can I not be worked up?" Shui Shuheng's beard bristled with fury. "Tell me, your Jishou Chamber of Commerce tore down the Tang sect's branch in the East Sea today. Do you know what that means?" He didn't wait for an answer. He kept ranting, as if speaking aloud would steady him. "It means the East Sea Legion, the entire East Sea, has declared war on the Tang sect. You're playing with fire." "Playing with fire, you say? How many of those damned federal council members and those research institutes are colluding with the Tang sect behind our backs? The balance we've kept for so long, you just shattered it. How can we still push reforms with methods like this? You have thunder, but no virtue. Who will follow us into reform if we bully everyone?" Huo Wuji listened in silence, expression unruffled. When Shui Shuheng's fury finally ebbed a little, Huo set down his teacup and met him with an even gaze. "Old Shui, are you finished?" "No." Shui snapped, but then, forced by Huo's steady calm, he snorted, sank into a chair, and after a long breath asked, "What? Do you think I'm wrong?" Huo smiled faintly and shook his head. "No, you're right, and you're wrong." "What do you mean by that?" Shui Shuheng's brows drew together. He didn't like the vagueness. Huo rose and went to the window, staring out at the restless waters of the East Sea before he spoke slowly. "Old Shui, you're right that we've broken the existing balance, but you're wrong to call it playing with fire. What we've done is light a blaze that should have been lit long ago." "I don't understand." Shui's frown deepened. Huo turned back to him and spoke with steady conviction. "Old Shui, don't you see how corrupt the East Sea region has become? As an emerging urban cluster and port-based economic zone, the East Sea's defining feature is rapid development. Capital flows in and out non-stop. The taxes alone make up 2/3 of what the central and western regions collect." He leaned on the sill, hands clasped. "All those financial gaps exploited by the big families in the central and western lands, the detached forces that cling like leeches, are paid for with East Sea money. Do you think that's fair?" Huo's words hit like a hammer. Shui Shuheng fell silent, brows tight, a complex look passing through his eyes. As controller of the East Sea Legion, he knew this better than anyone. Ancient families entrenched in the interior, chambers of commerce evolved from old sects, had extended their reach into the East Sea over decades. They siphoned resources from the emerging lands and never truly contributed to their development. Worse, they exploited loopholes in the federal command to flout the law. Shui took a deep breath. "Huo Wuji, you're right. The East Sea is paying for them. But that's the reality. We can't change it. Not now. The Tang sect is one of the continent's oldest powers. Their tentacles reach across this land and into other continents. If we attack rashly, we'll only invite a harsher retaliation. Our reforms will stall, maybe even be reversed." Huo chuckled, a sharp light in his eyes. "Old Shui, you're too cautious. It's precisely your caution that risks stagnating our reforms. What we need isn't timidity, but thunder. The Tang sect is powerful, yes, but they are not invincible. If the Jishou Chamber of Commerce dares to strike, it's because we have our reasons and our confidence." Shui's frown deepened. "Confidence? On what basis? A few members with unknown backgrounds? Don't forget, the Tang sect has dozens of titled Douluo. Their sect master and vice sect master are limit Douluo, powers that have even brushed the realm of God." Huo scoffed. "You're right, the Tang sect is powerful, but you're missing the point. The times have changed." His voice was low and certain, as if stating an inevitable truth. He paced back to the table, rested his hands on it, and fixed Shui with a steady look. "The Tang sect's influence is rooted in the rules of an older age. They rely on inherited privilege and long-standing control over the continent's lifelines. But have you asked whether those rules still fit this era? As soon as something capable of challenging them emerges, the world will be turned upside down. He remembered something Chen Zhou once said in a casual conversation: eventually, the world belongs to the majority. After endless cycles, successive generations wake and reclaim what rightfully belongs to them from those who set themselves above others. Strong individuals can suppress rebellions, uprisings, revolutions for a time, but each upheaval advances the majority's consciousness. Frameworks that once seemed unbreakable grow transparent, then fragile, and finally collapse through repeated breakdowns. Compared to the chaos of 10,000 years ago, or the great disturbances of several thousand years past, many of those rebellions were crushed by the overwhelming power of spirit masters who hoarded most resources. But did those uprisings serve no purpose? Lives improved in the aftermath. Civilian soul guidance technology appeared. In some remote, impoverished places, ordinary people began to hold official positions. These aren't anomalies, they're the tide of history and inevitability. Huo's voice hardened. The Jishou Chamber of Commerce has found that inevitable point. We've struck the spark at the right moment to set a raging fire. Chapter 151. If provoked, tie them up and beat them together. Huo Wuji's voice rang through the hall, carrying an invisible weight that struck at Shui Shuheng's heart. Shui fell silent, his eyes flickering with a mixture of agreement and worry for the future. Huo Wuji, you're right. The times are changing. He spoke slowly, wariness in his voice. But you know a behemoth like the Tang sect won't fall easily. Their roots are deep, their reach wide, and they have twisted ties to high-ranking officials in the Federation. If we act rashly, we'll only invite a harsher backlash. Huo Wuji smiled faintly, a flash of confidence in his eyes. Old Shui, you're right. The Tang sect won't fall easily. But have you considered we don't have to take them all down at once? Shrek Academy, the Spirit Transfer Pagoda, and those calcified officials in the Federation will never stand by if the Tang sect collapses. We expected that long ago. Those words hit Shui in a particular way. He hadn't come to the Jishou Chamber of Commerce headquarters on a whim. After watching the East Sea change over the past months and seeing capable people like Che Taiyan come here with their dreams, he'd finally allowed himself to imagine a brighter future for the Sun-Moon Federation. Could this rotten ship truly be saved? For a moment, the old despair returned to him. He sank back into his chair, staring ahead as if lost in memory. As controller of the East Sea Legion, he had spent decades pushing reform and development, but faced with the Federation's rot and a force like the Tang sect, he'd often felt powerless. It wasn't just the Tang sect's strength. Countless factions that had grown fat on the Federation's corruption were bent on growing in the wrong directions. With the influence Shui had, enough to shift the East Sea overnight, how had he stayed silent for so long? He had seen no hope. No matter how ambitious someone is, without a glimmer of light in the dark, ambition withers. Now, seeing what the Jishou Chamber of Commerce had already achieved, hope returned. People were content, work was orderly, soul guidance technology was flourishing, and the gap between ordinary people and spirit masters was closing. In some domains, ordinary people were even beginning to surpass spirit masters. All of this was the Jishou Chamber's doing. Shui's gaze sharpened. He looked at Huo Wuji, the silver-haired man with a constant, faint smile, whose conviction seemed unshakable. Old Shui, Huo said quietly, what a rotten ship needs is destruction before creation. The key is whether we have the courage and the strength to break the old shackles. His voice was steady, as if stating an undeniable truth. He walked to stand before Shui and continued, You've seen what the Jishou Chamber has done. We aren't just fighting the Tang sect. We're making a path for the future of the East Sea, and maybe the whole Federation. Shui fell silent, a complex light passing through his eyes. He rose slowly and looked out the window, thinking. Then he turned back to Huo, resolve seeping into his tone. Huo Wuji, perhaps you're right. Maybe we do need a full revolution, but you must understand, the cost of such a revolution could exceed anything we can imagine. Huo's smile sharpened. Old Shui, revolution never comes cheap, but if we don't take this step, the future of the East Sea and of the Federation will be swallowed by darkness. The Jishou Chamber of Commerce is willing to bear that cost. Shui breathed deeply and nodded. Good. If a junior like you is willing to make that choice and not shrink from bloodshed, what do I, an old man, have to fear? But I must warn you, he added, voice heavy, the Tang sect will not sit idly by. Their retaliation will be brutal. We must be ready. And remember, Shrek Academy and the Tang sect have been aligned for years. The Spirit Transfer Pagoda, long suppressed by them, won't let any force that threatens their interests rise either. Enemies everywhere, indeed. Huo's lips curved. He walked to the window and gazed into the distance as if at the storm to come. Enemies everywhere? He chuckled, equal parts disdain and confidence. Old Shui, you're right. The Tang sect, Shrek Academy, the Spirit Transfer Pagoda, even some of the Federation's high officials will become our enemies. But have you thought that it's precisely because of their power and their alliance that they give us our greatest opportunity? Shui frowned. Opportunity? What do you mean? Huo turned to him, eyes firm and commanding. The chance to annihilate them in one decisive blow. If they can be sensible, let this end peacefully. If they are merciless. His silver hair moved though there was no breeze. A killing intent flashed in his eyes as if he were already foreseeing the storm of blood. If there must be war, then let there be war. Huo Wuji had led the fragile Thunder Tribe to establish itself in a cruel world. He was no stranger to life and death struggle. His gaze burned like coals, ready to incinerate any obstacle. Shui's heart trembled. He had never seen Huo so fierce, like a sleeping beast finally baring its fangs. The darkness above seemed ready to be split by thunder. Shui asked quietly, gravely, Huo Wuji, have you thought this through? Huo scoffed, then smiled with an edge of humor that only made his threat colder. Old Shui, where's that gentle admonition you gave me earlier? Let everyone develop on their own, each according to their ability, and that would be that. But if someone really pisses me off, I'll tie up everyone in the Federation, from top to bottom, and beat them all together. The words landed like a sledgehammer. Surprise flickered across Shui's face, soon replaced by a complicated emotion he couldn't name. Chapter 152, The Tang Sect Won't Fall. Shui Shuheng knew Huo Wuji was not joking. The gravity in Huo's voice pressed down on him like a physical weight, but amid the pressure, there was a sliver of hope. Huo Wuji, it's easy for you to say, but do you know how deep the Federation's roots run? The Tang Sect, Shrek Academy, the Spirit Transfer Pagoda, each of them has stood for centuries, even millennia. Their foundations and strength are beyond our reckoning. Shui Shuheng's tone was low, edged with helplessness. Huo Wuji offered a faint smile, a cold flash in his eyes. Old Shui, cut the formalities. My Jisho Chamber of Commerce has already placed its bet in this gamble. Is your East Sea Legion in or out? The future or the past? Choose one. Let's go. Shui Sheng fell silent, a storm of emotions passing across his face. He knew Huo's words were not bluster. This was a real, irreversible choice. He could either continue to follow the Federation or side with the Jisho Chamber and step into an uncertain future. Huo Wuji watched him calmly, as if he had already anticipated Shui's answer. Eventually, Shui Shuheng drew a deep breath and said slowly, Huo Wuji, you win. My East Sea Legion will advance and retreat with your Jisho Chamber of Commerce. A small smile tugged at Huo Wuji's lips. Shui's decision meant they were allied now, bound to the same front. Good, old Shui. Then we face this storm together. His voice was steady and resolute. He stepped forward, gripped Shui Shuheng's hand tightly, and for a moment their eyes locked as if their fates were joined. In Tianhai City, the upheaval had barely touched ordinary life. If Chen Zhou had not called a meeting with the dignitaries from the East Sea regions, the Tianhai Alliance competition would not have been delayed. Representatives from the Blacksmiths Association, East Sea Academy, Tianhai Academy, everyone felt that something was off in the city. Teacher, why was the team battle postponed? Tang Wulin asked when he, Xie, Guyue, and Xu Xiaoyan were ushered into Wu Zhangkong's hotel room. Wu Zhangkong's face was etched with worry. Word of the Tang sect's troubles in the East Sea region had already reached him. As a Tang sect disciple, he wanted to stand and fight with the sect, but he also couldn't risk implicating East Sea Academy or the 4 promising students he'd brought with him. Don't worry about it for now, Wu Zhangkong said. The delay just gives you more time to prepare. Focus on the competition. Starting tomorrow, All four of you will be in my room at 7:30 a.m. sharp for a surprise training session. Aim for a top 3 finish in the team competition." His voice was low and authoritative. Tang Wulin and the others exchanged glances at his unusual severity, but knew it wasn't the time to press him. "Yes, teacher," Tang Wulin replied respectfully. The others nodded in agreement. Wu Zhongkong forced a smile. "All right, go rest. The competition won't start immediately, but don't be distracted these next few days. Don't wander around Tianhai City." They left his room and the four returned to their lodgings with heavy hearts. Tang Wulin could sense Wu Zhongkong's anxiety, but didn't know the cause. "Wulin, what's wrong?" Shishe asked, noticing Tang Wulin's troubled expression. Tang Wulin shook his head. "I just feel like Teacher Wu is hiding something." Shishi clicked his tongue, patted Tang Wulin's shoulder, and tried to comfort him. "Don't overthink it. If even Teacher Wu finds it difficult, what can we do if we knew?" Guyo and Xu Xiaoyan were silent. Guyo had felt the distant battle's power earlier. The eruption had threatened her, and she chose to say nothing more. Xu Xiaoyan had just received word that the Jishou chamber was pressuring the East Sea region to pick sides. All four left feeling heavy and uneasy. In another room, Wu Zhongkong paced, waiting anxiously for news. He knew the Tang sect had taken a severe blow in the East Sea, and all he could do was keep lines of communication open while he waited for word from sect headquarters. The calm spirit tool in his hand finally beeped. He tapped it and a low voice came through. "Wu Zhongkong, this is Guo Xiaoshu." Guo Xiaoshu, Hall Master of the Tang sect's Douluo Hall, General Manager of the Tang sect's Shrek City headquarters, a level 97 titled Douluo bearing the epithet Glaze. "Hall Master Guo, what's the situation?" Wu Zhongkong asked, voice tight. "Things are very bad." Guo Xiaoshu's tone was grave. "The Tang sect's forces in the East Sea region have been almost entirely routed. We've suffered heavy losses." Wu Zhongkong's face went pale. "Is there anything you need me to do?" Guo Xiaoshu paused, then sighed. "If you can make contact with someone influential within the Jishou Chamber of Commerce, see if we can buy an opportunity to negotiate. The Vice Sect Master is already en route, and Hall Master Liang and I will head over as well. For now, your priority is to verify the situation of Tang sect disciples in the East Sea region and then proceed with negotiations." Wu Zhongkong was stunned. He had always seen the Tang sect and Shrek Academy as invincible pillars, unshakable. The Jishou Chamber's actions had made him realize even such pillars had limits. "All right, I'll do everything I can," he said. "There's only so much one can do," Guo Xiaoshu replied, exhaustion in his voice. "If it fails, don't blame yourself. The Tang sect won't fall." The connection cut off, and Wu Zhongkong's face grew even more somber. Chapter 153. Can the Tang sect really not fall? No matter how hard Guo Xiaoshu tried to comfort him, the reality was inescapable. Could the Tang sect really be invincible? What a power at its peak fears most is the shattering of its so-called golden body. Once a lofty god bleeds, all the jackals and hyenas will see that a god is merely a slightly stronger human. The East Sea region had been the Federation's fastest-growing economic zone for the past century, so naturally many Tang sect disciples had been stationed there. This time, they had all been struck in a single sweeping operation. Infrastructure seized, secret strongholds uncovered, corporate fronts dismantled, industrial parks taken. That was before counting the casualties from resisting capture. Even so, the blow was crippling. Wu Zhongkong set the spirit communication device down and stared at it, bewilderment in his eyes. He took a deep breath and picked it up again. "Hello, Teacher Wu." A look of recognition crossed his face, as if the scene had folded back into that final exam, the filthy truths about the Tang sect Chen Zhou had spoken of. Hadn't he once been lost in the glory of a Tang sect that would stand 10,000 years, unwilling to wake? Wasn't it possible that the Jishou Chamber of Commerce no longer feared the Tang sect? "Chen Zhou, I want to talk to you." "Okay," Chen Zhou agreed without hesitation. Wu Zhongkong sat by the window, gaze fixed on the glass as if looking at some distant point, yet seeing nothing. The soft room light could not lift the confusion and helplessness in his eyes. It was as if his soul had been plucked out, leaving only an empty shell. Outside, Tianhai City's neon lights blinked like vivid stars, but his heart was a moon behind thick clouds, stripped of its shine. Thoughts drifted like smoke, memories slipping through his fingers like water. The door opened, and Chen Zhou stepped in. His presence cut a ray through the fog in Wu's mind, and Wu's eyes slowly lit. Wu looked at him with a complicated expression. Of all the people he could contact at the Jishou Chamber of Commerce, only Chen Zhou remained. This student who wasn't really his student. "Teacher Wu, do you need me for something?" Chen Zhou sat on the sofa beside him with practiced elegance, neither servile nor arrogant. "I want to speak with you as a Tang sect disciple." Wu Zhangkong exhaled and let resolve show on his face, as if he had made a weighty decision. Chen Zhou smiled faintly, feigning surprise, then leaned back. "Go ahead, Mr. Wu Zhangkong. What is it?" Wu forced a bitter smile. There was no turning back. "Chen Zhou, tell me exactly what the Jishou Chamber of Commerce did to the Tang sect disciples in the East Sea." Chen arched an eyebrow, amusement in his tone. "Mr. Wu, I've always followed the principle of equivalent exchange. If you want something of value, you must give me something in return." Wu's brows tightened. He knew what Chen meant, but could he give the thing Chen wanted now? He wasn't sure. He kept his voice steady. "What do you want?" Chen's expression was placid, his eyes unreadable. "It's not about what I want. It's about the value of your question." Wu trembled, then spoke with a heavy sigh. "Apart from what I've sworn an oath to keep, I will tell you everything I know." Chen nodded. He wasn't inclined to make things difficult. "I want every roster of the Tang sect across the East Sea region." "All right." Wu hesitated only a moment before sending the lists through the device and waiting on Guo Xiaoshu's confirmation. When her reply came, he nodded. "The Tang sect members in the East Sea, aside from a few extreme resistors, have been placed under supervision in batches." Chen gave no more words than necessary. "I need the locations of every Tang sect stronghold in the East Sea." "All right." Wu stared at Chen, understanding the implication: annihilation. The Jishou Chamber of Commerce intended to seal off the East Sea completely. Still, Guo Xiaoshu showed no hesitation. Because the Tang sect's management was layered, they had already lost contact with branches in the cities of the East Sea and with the strongholds those branches controlled. Given that, keeping secret agents there was a fantasy. The immediate priority was to harvest whatever information they could. Chen tapped the armrest of the sofa, calm as ever. "What about Hallmaster Zhao?" Wu braced himself. Chen's reply was quiet, precise. "Zhao Song's limbs were severed, and his spirit power has been crippled." "What?" Wu forgot protocol and leapt to his feet, glaring at Chen Zhou. "How could you be so cruel?" Anger rolled through him like a storm, sweeping away decorum. He could not accept that this young man before him could treat a fellow Tang sect member so ruthlessly. Chen merely shook his head, expression indifferent. "Is that a question you wanted answered?" "You!" The fury burned hot, but under Chen's unruffled gaze, Wu felt its pointlessness. He drew a slow breath and fought to calm himself. Storms raged within, but he knew as a Tang sect disciple, he had responsibilities that must not be abandoned to emotion. Chapter 154. If you want war, then let there be war. "Please tell me, can Zhao Song's injuries be healed?" Wu Zhangkong's voice was low, trying desperately to sound calm. "He was an important talent of the Tang sect. I hope he can receive proper treatment." A flicker of disdain crossed Chen Zhou's face. He didn't even offer Zhao Song as a bargaining chip. He said coldly, "His condition isn't the point. We've already interrogated him. He's awaiting trial." "Trial? Who are you putting on trial?" Wu Zhangkong demanded, his tone hardening. A helplessness prickled at the base of his skull. "What right do you have to put an elder who maintains the stability of the continent on trial? Do you understand what that means? Or are you telling me the Jishou Chamber of Commerce is ready for all-out war with the Tang sect?" Chen Zhou didn't answer right away. He tapped the table beside the sofa with his fingers, a steady, rhythmic sound that had an oddly steadying effect. The motion and the noise seemed to drain the heat from Wu Zhangkong's anger. Chen Zhou's gaze remained composed, as if Wu's fury were nothing more than a passing gust. "Wu Zhangkong, I think you misunderstand," Chen Zhou said slowly, his voice low and sure. "The Jishou Chamber of Commerce never acted to provoke the Tang sect. This is the consequence of the Tang sect's conduct in the East Sea region, of the many things they've done there. Don't rush to deny it. If you want proof, understand this. I wouldn't say it if I didn't have more evidence than you'll ever have. Secondly, ask yourself who made the first move between us and the Tang sect. I think you, and the person behind your communication spirit tool, know full well. Wu Jiankong fell silent. A complicated expression flitted across his face. Chen Zhou's words hit home like a blade. He couldn't deny that the Tang sect's actions in the East Sea had been problematic. Some had even crossed the Federation's bottom line. Private brawls, unauthorized inspections, experiments on forbidden tech. There were sins he knew of and others he didn't. Even he, after being detained by the East Sea Legion, had technically deserved months behind bars, but he had been released. As a beneficiary of that leniency, he couldn't wholly refute Chen Zhou's accusations. Still, Wu Jiankong's loyalty to the Tang sect ran deep. He drew a steadying breath and tried to keep his voice even. Chen Zhou, you're right that the Tang sect has issues in the East Sea, but many among us are working to change that. I'm asking the Jishou Chamber of Commerce to give the Tang sect a chance. Let us resolve this through negotiation, not violence. Negotiation? Fine. Chen Zhou's casual reply threw Wu Jiankong off balance. He had expected aggression, perhaps harsh terms, but this ease, this sudden willingness to negotiate, doused the fire in Wu's chest and left a cold knot in his gut. He hesitated, uncertain. You're really willing to negotiate? Wu asked, voice tinged with disbelief. Chen Zhou smiled faintly, indifference flashing across his features. The Jishou Chamber of Commerce is not an organization that seeks wanton violence. We want change, so the East Sea and the entire Federation can be better. Those words were theater for Wu Jiankong's benefit. Chen Zhou and the others, Guo Xiaosu included, the man Wu would report to later, wouldn't take his promises at face value. Chen's tone tightened. Go back and discuss it. Tell me the time and place. Remember the information you owe us. Chen Zhou rose, smoothing his clothes, his gaze steady and unyielding. Wu Jiankong, understand this. The Jishou Chamber of Commerce isn't threatening the Tang sect. We're issuing a warning. We're not afraid of war. If you want war, then let there be war. With that, he strode from the room. Wu Jiankong sat staring after his retreating back, stunned. There was nothing childish about the man who had just left, no trace of the 10-year-old boy he'd once imagined. After a long moment, the realization hit him. He had forgotten to send a message to Guo Xiaosu. Dusk deepened. The setting sun burned like blood, casting its last light over a lonely stretch of land and bathing the world in a thin veil of crimson gold. Human traces were scarce here. Wild grass grew thick and unkempt, the wind moving through it in silence. Distant mountains hovered at the horizon, seeming to join sky and earth. This part of the Douluo continent, closer to the East Sea and edged by primeval forest, had long been sparsely populated, like a place forgotten by time. On a smooth stone platform, an elegant young man sat upright. His features were sharp and composed. His robes fluttered in the breeze, lending him the air of a scholar. He idly flipped through a dog-eared notebook, its pages yellowed and filled with cramped handwriting, as though it were an artifact from another age. His expression was calm, but his eyes betrayed quiet thought, as if searching for truths buried beneath years of dust. Behind him, 3 figures stood at attention, each radiating a distinct aura. One had long golden hair falling over his shoulders, his face as placid as a lake, yet with brows that hinted at latent thunder, a presence known as Golden Claw God, a capable general under the young man's command. Another, broad-shouldered and purple-haired, was built like a fortress. His vicious grin and menacing bearing marked him as Purple Armor, a battle-hardened warrior. The last wore a green robe and moved with an almost ethereal lightness, his eyes reflecting an untamed freedom. He was Qing Guang, a roaming swordsman with concealed depths of power. All 3 watched the notebook in the young man's hands as if waiting for a signal. But he remained absorbed in the pages, never looking up. Only the breeze whispered through his robes. Worked all day, too tired. 2 chapters will be posted today, the rest will be made up tomorrow. Chapter 155, Killing Intent Nearby. A prison cart sat silent on the plain, its square frame ringed with iron bars that caught the light and seemed to hold some cruel history. Inside, a man was curled into himself, his 4 limbs severed, hair in disorder, eyes vacant, more corpse than man. Even in that ruined state, he sent a chill through anyone who looked at him. as though he carried an unspeakable guilt. The wind stirred the dry grass with a whisper and a sigh. The young man finally closed his notebook and looked up at the sky. A complicated expression flickered across his face. Golden Claw God, Purple Armor, and Qing Guang also lifted their heads, their gazes solemn and expectant. "This matter has been settled. We will act after careful planning," the young man said softly, his voice distant and yet oddly near, as if announcing a turning point. He stood, eyes briefly softening as they swept over the figure in the prison cart. Then the pity vanished. Golden Claw God gave a slight nod. Purple Armor sneered, and Qing Guang sighed, staring off into the dimming sky. The four of them stood on the desolate plain, their shadows long in the slanting light, as if about to merge with the wasteland itself. Dusk deepened. Clouds drifted on a sharpening wind, and the air seemed to thrum with something about to be unleashed. Hoo-hoo! A large eagle owl, Feigu, nicknamed Fat Gu, circled above, then landed beside the young man as if reporting something. "Feigu, how about you come back?" Chen Zhou set his notebook aside and smoothed the bird's soft feathers. "Hoo-hoo!" The owl shook his head. As a contracted soul spirit, Feigu could feel his master's care, but he also wanted to grow strong enough to stand beside Chen Zhou, not curl inside him whenever trouble came. "Then you'll stay and watch." Chen Zhou understood the chubby owl's feelings. He stroked Feigu's feathers, but his gaze grew colder, fixed on the distance as if watching the coming storm. The wind picked up, making the grass hiss like a prelude to upheaval. Golden Claw God, Purple Armor, Qing Guang. His voice was low and powerful, carrying an easy, unquestioned authority. The three agents answered in unison, solemn, "Here." "Are you ready?" Chen Zhou's eyes swept them. A thin flash of cold glittered in them. Golden Claw God nodded, steady. "Young master, everything is ready." Purple Armor's lips curled. He clenched his fists until the metal on his palms clicked. "Young master, I've waited long enough. Not one of them will escape." Qing Guang smiled, almost carefree. "Master, we can move at any time." Chen Zhou glanced back at the man in the cart. Zhao Song's eyes were empty, life drained away. Chen Zhou's face was expressionless, ice in his gaze. "Zhao Song," he said quietly, "you plotted against me and framed me with that fabricated crime. Your capture is the result of karma. You have no one to blame but yourself." He paused, then finished without hesitation. "Therefore, your life I, Chen Zhou, will take." Zhao Song trembled as if he had heard him, but his eyes remained hollow, offering no reply. Chen Zhou turned to Feigu. "Stay here and watch Zhao Song. If he makes a move, kill him." "Hoo-hoo," Feigu agreed without hesitation. With his limbs severed and his meridians ruined, Zhao Song wouldn't last long. Leaving him guarded was simply prudent. Chen Zhou walked forward. His eyes seemed to have lost color, pupils stark, his gaze full of a pervasive killing intent. He stood alone in the twilight, yet carried an undeniable majesty. Each step he took fell on fate's nodes, compelling and inexorable. Golden Claw God, Purple Armor, and Qing Guang followed closely. Their expressions were feral, filled with the thirst for slaughter, with a maddened killing intent long suppressed that now surged toward release. The sky turned blood red as the sun slid lower. The afterglow stained the clouds like spilled wine, and the distant ridgelines cut black and angular against the crimson. Silence lay over the plain, heavy and charged. At the edge of that sunset, 5 figures approached with unhurried steps. Their auras were extraordinary, at once part of the desolation and beyond it. The leader carried a long sword at his side. The blade stayed sheathed, but a cold light flowed from it. His face was delicately handsome, his eyes soft as water, but able to dissolve feelings with a single look. This was Zhang Xin, vice sect master of the Tang sect, known as Amorous Douluo. Though his title spoke of amorousness, his depths were like the sea. Even before his sword was drawn, he inspired awe. Beside him walked a man with a simple, honest face and a constant, gentle smile like spring breeze. Guo Xiaoshu, hallmaster of the Douluo Hall of the Tang sect, Thousand Cloud Douluo. Beneath that smile lurked the resolute force of thunder, calm and immovable until it struck. Another was handsome and carefree, walking with his hands clasped behind his head, light as the wind, Liang Xiaoyu, hallmaster of the Speed Hall, Aurora Douluo. He moved like light itself, swift, elusive, dazzling. Next came a woman both graceful and noble, her face like a cold moon and her eyes cool yet gentle. Moonlight seemed to follow her steps. This was Kaiyuer, dean of the outer court of Shrek Academy, Silver Moon Douluo, aloof and serene, but not to be trifled with. Finally, a man whose calm presence felt like a warm spring breeze, steady, unhurried, rooted like timber, yet warming like sunlight. This was Lan Muzi, vice dean of the inner court of Shrek Academy, Sunwood Douluo, unyielding and kind. The five walked side by side under the sunset, robes catching the light, their silhouettes like 5 stars that already dimmed the world around them. The plain seemed to hold its breath, the sound of their footsteps echoing faintly across the empty land. All 5 were heroes of the age. Though their purpose in coming together remained unspoken, their very presence filled the scene with awe under the dying sunlight. Extra chapter tomorrow. Popularity bonus reached, 249 480 plus 1 chapter. Average subscription bonus, 4035 plus 1 chapter. Reward bonus, 408 500, not reached, no bonus chapter. Adding the 8 ode chapters plus the 3 regular chapters for tomorrow brings the total to 13 chapters. Oh my god, working overtime on my day off is killing me. Chapter 156. If we don't agree, let's fight. The two sides faced each other in the wilderness, their auras colliding so fiercely the air itself seemed to freeze. Zhang Xin, the vice sect master, sighed helplessly. Can this really not be settled? Everyone knew it was a formality. Zhao Song's limbs had been severed. The Power Hall's hallmaster, cultivated by the Tang sect for years, was crippled. The Tang sect's grip on the East Sea, its cash cow, had been uprooted. The Tang sect stood badly weakened. Both insiders and outsiders realized this conflict could no longer be smoothed over with simple words. The honor and interests of the Tang sect had been gravely affronted. If they failed to show force and strike back, other opportunists would swarm in to pick apart the assets long controlled by the sect's leaders. Chen Zhou stood perfectly still in the field, his gaze steady on the 5 Tang sect representatives. There was no fear in him, only an unsettling calm and confidence. If Vice Sect Master Zhang has come to mediate, you may return. I expect to see Sect Master Cao at the next negotiation. The Tang sect was already rotten, he added coolly. Please don't let me think any worse of it. His tone was flat, final. The words cut like a blade into the 5 Tang sect members. Zhang Xin's brow tightened. He hadn't expected Chen Zhou to be so unyielding, leaving them no room to maneuver. Chen Zhou, you are arrogant, he said. Guo Xiaoshu's voice rumbled low and dangerous. The Tang sect has stood on Douluo continent for 10,000 years. How can a junior like you judge it? Chen Zhou gave a small smile and swept his gaze over Guo Xiaoshu with unmistakable disdain. Hallmaster Guo, the Tang sect's history is indeed grand, but to me it reads like victors writing a history they can reshape at will. What truth is there in it? Have you not heard? Those intoxicated by the garbage of past glory deserve to be swept into the trash. He added, it's crude, but it fits. Guo Xiaoshu's face darkened instantly. The Tang sect's glorious past was their pride. To have it dismissed as garbage was intolerable. Chen Zhou, you are presumptuous. Guo Xiaoshu snapped, fists clenching until his knuckles cracked. Chen Zhou remained composed, as if Guo's fury was a minor gust. He casually shook his head and said with a hint of mockery, Hallmaster Guo, anger won't solve anything. If the Tang sect were as powerful as you claim, it wouldn't be 5 of you here today. It would be the Tang sect's army. I hear the Tang sect even mass-produces mechas. Where are they now? His words stung the gathered Tang sect members and the Shrek representatives alike. Though all were top-tier powerhouses, faced with Chen Zhou's calm assurance, they felt a rare helplessness. Zhang Xin inhaled deeply, forcing his voice steady. Chen Zhou, we did not come to argue about history. We want to resolve this matter by negotiation. Negotiate? Chen Zhou chuckled, cold. Then tell me, what can you offer for Zhao Song, who has been maimed, had his meridians shattered and his memories wiped? You, Guo Xiaosu flashed, fury renewed. Zhao Song, though not the absolute strongest, was a pillar of the Tang sect's East Sea layout. Crippling him was a devastating blow. Zhang Xin kept his composure, knowing uncontrolled anger would only worsen matters. But Chen Zhou would give no quarter. This meeting had the attention of more than the Tang sect. Shrek Academy watched from the sidelines, and Chen Zhou had prepared well, with intelligence from the East Sea. Powerful figures were not to be underestimated. Suddenly Chen Zhou stopped talking. Golden Claw God, kill him! Yes! The command cut the air, and the Golden Claw God exploded forward like a beast unleashed. Golden claws flashed, carrying a terrifying force. Zhang Xin's eyes narrowed. He hadn't expected Chen Zhou to attack so decisively, but as Vice Sect Master his strength was not to be underestimated. He shifted and drew his longsword. The blade sliced the air and met the Golden Claw God's onrush with a sharp metallic ring. Even after his earlier battle with Zhao Song, the Golden Claw God, now constrained in human form, had learned how to fight as a man. Golden light flared as armor reformed into streaming bands of light and condensed over him, forging a majestic golden carapace that transformed him into a towering armored giant. His aura swelled to its peak, and with a thunderous roar, he surged at Zhang Xin. Zhang Xin met him without flinching. His swordcraft flashed like a rainbow, the tip arced toward the sky, and then came down in a blinding slash aimed to split the Golden Claw God in two. Their powers collided with a deafening crack that shook the wilderness, sending dust and sand spiraling as if heaven and earth trembled for their duel. Good, the Golden Claw God snarled. He twisted nimbly and thrust his extended claws toward a gap in Zhang Xin's defense, trying to find a weak point. You have some skill, but you won't pass this test today. You cannot shake the Tang sect's foundations. Zhang Xin's eyes flashed cold. He answered with another sweeping arc of his sword, aiming straight for the Golden Claw God's heart. The two combatants spiraled upward, carrying their battle into the high air, clashing and hurtling farther into the distance. While the two titans fought, Liang Xiaoyu put a plan into motion. With his spirit, the Aurora Wheel, he became a streak of light, the fastest speed visible on Douluo continent. In an instant, he transformed into a trail of aurora and shot toward the prison cart that held Zhao Song, which trailed not far behind Chen Zhou and the others. Chapter 157. Come Fight. The Aurora Wheel floated behind Liang Xiaoyu, shimmering with blinding light like a meteor streaking across the night sky. He spun lightly through the air, his figure merging with the flickering brilliance, as if a war god had descended, chasing the limits of light itself. In his heart, there was only one goal now, to rescue the imprisoned Zhao Song. Guo Xiaoshu noticed the man in green beside Chen Zhou had vanished and shouted a warning. Careful, Liang Xiaoyu. But Liang Xiaoyu, watching his old friend's tragic state through his purple demon eye, didn't hear. Zhao Song's blood-soaked, disheveled, mutilated form turned the anger in Liang Xiaoyu's chest into an uncontrollable force. He barreled forward, ignoring everything behind him. Hatred and courage wove together into an unbreakable thread, binding his fate to Zhao Song's. Damn it! Guo Xiaoshu kept shouting after him, but could only watch helplessly as his figure streaked past like a meteor toward the prison cart. The several thousand meters vanished in the blink of an eye under Liang Xiaoyu's lightspeed advance. What he hadn't expected was to find the man in green standing on the prison cart instead of beside Chen Zhou. The casual figure looked up, met Liang Xiaoyu's gaze, and smiled as if to mock his speed. Aurora Douluo, living up to your reputation, Qingguang said softly, a trace of mockery in his voice. Too bad you don't seem to know this stage is not what you imagined. Liang Xiaoyu's impatience erupted. Seeing someone block his path to Zhao Song, 4 purple and 5 black spirit rings flared on the Aurora Wheel. The wheel's rotation ripped through the air with a piercing whistle as he closed on Qingguang in an instant. His fury burned hot and steady. He would not let anyone stop him. Get out of the way! He roared, and the Aurora Wheel accelerated with a rumble, charging straight at Qingguang. A brilliant streak of light poured down like a meteor aimed at Qingguang's face. Qingguang only smiled faintly. Blue light flashed in his eyes, as though he could hear the click of gears. Battle energy swelled around him like a tidal wave. A long blue sword appeared in his hand. Sword shadows danced, slicing the air with a warning hiss. Come on, let me see what your Aurora can do. Qingguang taunted, his sword light running like a rainbow to meet the attack. Liang Xiaoyu poured everything into his strike and refused to back down. The 2 arcs of light collided with an earth-shattering roar like thunder. Dust flew, airwaves rolled across the plain, and the impact sent a shock outward as if heaven and earth trembled. The power of Qingguang's sword and Liang Xiaoyu's Aurora Wheel erupted in a violent clash, tearing the surrounding air apart and turning the ground into flying grit. Nearby, Purple Armor stepped forward to face the two from Shrek Academy who had dared to intervene. A sinister smile creased his face. "You two, it's our turn to practice," he said. Raw, surging killing intent radiated outward under the weight of his presence. Purple Armor's figure was like a mountain, solid and immovable, with every step he took carrying absolute majesty. Facing two Douluo, his arrogance and rage coiled into a powerful aura that roared like a starving beast. Kaiyuer and Lan Muzi exchanged tense glances. With Shrek's aid for the Tang sect, good relations with the Jisho Chamber of Commerce were likely over. Now enemies, they could show no mercy. A bright moon rose behind Kaiyuer, and her 4 purple, 4 black, and 1 red spirit rings flashed. Moonlight bathed her face, giving her the air of a god descended to the mortal world. She raised a hand, mobilizing the surrounding spiritual energy with gentle yet undeniable force. Her voice was solemn. "Quick battle, quick victory." Lan Muzi nodded. The usually gentle man now wore a killing look. His spirit, the Yang Woodblade, appeared in his hand. His 9 black spirit rings were equally imposing. "Now this is interesting," Purple Armor growled, bearing a murderous grin. As the Armor Beast tribe's strongest warrior after the Golden Claw god, savagery and slaughter were his nature. After the War King was lost, he had charged fearlessly into battle again and again, breaking enemy lines and seizing banners. Since arriving in this world, he'd felt stifled, and now the battle energy of his peak rank 16 combat ability burst forth, transforming into thunderous purple lightning. In an instant, his whole presence swept across the field like a storm. He stood like a towering, immovable mountain, radiating a chilling pressure. "Come fight!" Purple Armor roared and charged first at Kaiyuer and Lan Muzi. The feral, fearless spirit shaped by countless corpses and blood rose within him, awakening the bestial nature buried deep inside. Kaiyuer and Lan Muzi exchanged a determined look. "Spring snow!" Lan Muzi moved first. With a triumphant shout, golden light poured from the Yangwood blade like the first dawn, warm but carrying a razor edge. He transformed the blade into a golden ribbon of light and sent it straight at Purple Armor. Kaiyuer answered in kind. She concentrated her spirit under the moon and chanted softly, invoking lunar protection. The air cleared, and moonlight streamed down, forming a protective shield to resist Purple Armor's onslaught. She slightly raised her hands, and the converging moon energy coalesced into a wave of light, surging forward to meet him head-on. "Weak attack!" Purple Armor snarled and charged at Kaiyuer. His massive body radiated crushing pressure. Purple lightning armored his form as his fist, like a mountain, smashed toward Kaiyuer, intent on ending the fight in a single blow. Meanwhile, the duel between Liang Xiaoyu and Qingguang escalated. They moved like 2 meteors entwined, flashing with blinding light. The aurora wheel spun at an elusive speed, while Qingguang's sword light darted rainbow-like, nimble and precise, never letting up. "Aurora slash!" Liang Xiaoyu roared, converting all his energy into a dazzling aurora that blasted toward Qingguang. The light was so fierce it seemed able to tear space itself. "Qingguang flash!" Qingguang returned with a faint smile as his long sword split into several blue sword shadows, flaring into countless blades that met the aurora slash head-on. Dozens of light trails scrawled across the sky like glittering stars, each filled with killing intent, making the air seem to solidify. Boom, boom, more to come. Chapter 158, Qingming's Shadow Follows the Wind. Liang Xiaoyu realized he couldn't break Qingguang's defense, and the pressure on him only grew. Qingguang was learning his attack rhythm. As a speed-based spirit master, once an opponent reads his patterns, his chances of victory evaporate. "Spirit True Body!" Liang Xiaoyu roared. The aurora wheel floating behind him merged with him, temporarily transforming his entire body into aurora. His speed skyrocketed. Converging like a meteor, the wheel's light became blinding, like a falling star. The air around him trembled as if it might be torn apart. 8th spirit ability, Aurora Sweep! He lunged at Qingguang at near light speed. His form streaked like a winding meteor as he turned the spirit in his hand into a blaze of light and shadow, smashing it toward his opponent. Qingguang's smile was cold, disdain flashing across his eyes. He tapped his longsword. Sword light fanned out and multiplied into countless sword shadows that met the aurora head-on. As one of the Armor Beast tribe's fastest, he had once watched and even predicted the ultimate techniques of a speed-type war king. The so-called Speed Hall Master, the fastest on Douluo continent, was nothing special. Sword shadows rained down. Liang Xiaoyu's Aurora wheel attack, by comparison, felt like a breeze. Neither its force nor its speed could match Qingguang's swordsmanship. Countless blades of light enveloped Liang Xiaoyu, striking from every angle, forcing him on the defensive. Damn! Liang Xiaoyu swore in his mind. If this continued, he would be ground down. Aurora Shadow, a 3-character battle armor inscribed Aurora Shadow, descended onto him. Power erupted within, acting like an amplifier. A halo of brilliant light formed a shield about him, making him look even more ethereal and swift. With his strength doubled, he cut through the layers of sword light and closed in on Qingguang. His leg whip blurred into a streak of light, sweeping a vicious kick at Qingguang's face. Qingguang was startled and brought his longsword up to block, but he was a fraction too slow. Liang Xiaoyu's kick struck his cheek. Qingguang could only raise his hand to parry. With a heavy thud, he was sent flying, skidding back onto the ground and throwing up a cloud of dust. Good chance! Liang Xiaoyu seized the moment. His speed became almost imperceptible as he closed in. Qingguang bore the pain, steadied himself, eyes flashing with anger. He swung his longsword again to meet the incoming strike. Aurora, cut! Liang Xiaoyu shouted, channeling all his power into his feet and further amplifying the kick. He thundered forward like a meteor, combining speed and force to try to pierce Qingguang's defense. Qingguang panicked as the attack bore down. Pressure surged through him. He could no longer remain passive. He had to counter. Blue energy flowed from his body and coalesced around his longsword into a glowing shield. Boom! The two forces collided with an earth-shaking impact. Air convulsed, dust soared, and a massive energy vortex swallowed the surroundings. Liang Xiaoyu's Aurora cut tore through Qingguang's shield, forcing him back and drawing blood at the corner of his mouth. Wiping the blood away, Qingguang's eyes went cold with killing intent. He never expected Liang Xiaoyu to be able to amplify himself so suddenly and decisively, an opportunity that, if seized, could be fatal. Such a chance would not come again. There was no point in hiding his 16th level combat energy now. With the enemy having shown his trump cards, secrecy was unnecessary. Qingming, shadow follows the wind. Qingguang bellowed. Brilliant energy erupted from him. The air seemed to harden. The combat power he radiated was alien to this world, wild and elegant, a refinement honed by the machine beast world. His longsword awoke, swathed in blue light, becoming a brilliant sword shadow that cut the air with a humming roar. Liang Xiaoyu's expression tightened. He felt a grave threat closing in. 9th spirit ability, fleeting light and shadow. He poured every scrap of spirit power into himself. The surrounding airflow shivered as the Aurora wheel flared so brilliantly it rivaled the sun, its light obscuring his figure as he moved at the utmost speed. This was his greatest spirit ability, the ultimate technique for which he was renowned. Qingguang drew a graceful arc with his sword. The blade's light struck like a bolt of blue lightning. Speed between them exceeded mundane comprehension. Aurora and blue light braided across the battlefield into a stunning display. But just as their attacks were about to meet, Qingguang's figure vanished, as if he had melted into the air. Liang Xiaoyu's pupils narrowed, alarm sounding through him. He shifted course, the Aurora wheel carving an arc to try to catch Qingguang's trace. Here! Qingguang's cold laugh sounded from behind, and his longsword stabbed like a venomous strike at Liang Xiaoyu's back. Liang Xiaoyu reacted instantly, spinning the Aurora wheel to block the fatal blow. Qingguang did not relent. His longsword split into countless sword shadows, each imbued with killing intent. Clang! 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 Metal rang as their weapons met again and again. Both moved at impossible speeds, tearing the air into visible ripples. Gradually, Liang Xiaoyu felt himself overwhelmed. Qingguang's sword momentum intensified. Each strike carried crushing force, as if meant to utterly shatter him. Liang Xiaoyu knew he could not endure this onslaught. I can't drag this out, he gritted through his teeth. Spirit power surged wildly within him. Under that force, the Aurora wheel erupted with unprecedented luminosity. He roared, and the wheel split into countless shards of light that spread out like a colossal net, enveloping Qingguang. Swordlight and Aurora collided in a blinding storm, the two forces locked in a furious contest as the battlefield shook under the clash of light and shadow. Chapter 159. A fight should only be about life and death, not victory or defeat. Aurora Cage. Liang Xiaoyu unleashed her sixth spirit ability, Aurora Cage. Once trapped in that net of light, even a titled Douluo would find escape difficult. Qingguang sneered, his longsword tracing a cyan arc that split Liang Xiaoyu's web of light as if cutting through morning mist. A petty trick. His voice was cold and mocking. His figure blurred, and he was suddenly before Liang Xiaoyu. The longsword, like a venomous serpent, thrust straight at her chest. Liang Xiaoyu's eyes widened. She retreated desperately, but Qingguang's sword momentum clung like a shadow. The strike drove her back, forcing her to guard for dear life. Nearby, Lan Muzi had just broken through a long stagnant plateau in his spirit Douluo cultivation and reached titled Douluo. He now had to face a terrifying opponent. The momentum of his Yangwood blade, once unstoppable, felt unexpectedly dulled. Kai Yuer and Lan Muzi had come primarily to mediate the clash between the Tang sect and the Jishou Chamber of Commerce. The latter's behavior had almost upended the established order, something Shrek Academy could not tolerate. The stability and peace of the Federation owed much to Shrek Academy's long, effective oversight. None of them had expected the conflict to flare so sharply, nor that the Jishou Chamber would be so brazen. "If you get distracted fighting me, then die!" Purple Armor laughed, his iron fists falling like mountains and raising a violent gust that surged toward Lan Muzi. Lan Muzi lifted his blade to meet it. The Yangwood blade struck Purple Armor's fists with a deafening clang. A massive force rolled through Lan Muzi's arms, numbing the tiger's mouth. He staggered back several steps and tasted blood. He hadn't expected Purple Armor's strength to be so terrifying. Since the Armor Beast tribe lost its War King, a string of heroic figures had stepped up: the cunning Golden Claw God, the strategist Lan Jia, the swift Qingguang. But of all the tribe's warriors of this generation, Purple Armor most resembled the old War King, wild, belligerent, addicted to slaughter. In strength and physique, he was outstanding even among his kin. If the Golden Claw God had not appeared, Purple Armor might have borne this generation's burden alone. Now his combat style was laid bare, every attack an expression of raw destructive will, as if he intended to crush any opponent utterly. The Mecha Beast Clans were born for battle. To break from primitive shackles and reach true combat power, one had to forge techniques in countless life and death struggles. In Purple Armor's eyes, combat should be simple, life or death, not about winning or losing. That relentless mindset let his fists, in ordinary training, rival the Golden Claw God who stood a level above him. His blows smashed down like cliffs, the wind they drove tearing at the wasteland itself. Lan Muzi retreated under the onslaught, the light on his Yangwood blade dimming. Damn! How can his strength be this terrifying? He cursed inwardly. Each clash felt like a mountain pressing on him, making his organs shake. Lan Muzi, be careful! Kair cried. Startled, Lan Muzi dodged, but the fist came like lightning and slammed into his chest. The impact rang through his body. A mouthful of fresh blood exploded from his lips. He flew back like a kite with a broken string, hitting the ground hard and kicking up a cloud of dust. Lan Muzi, Kai Yuer called, panic in her voice. She poured spirit power into a moonlight shield that descended over him. But Purple Armor did not relent. He pounced like a beast, his fists bearing terrifying force aimed at the moonlight shield. Crack! The barrier shattered under his blows, moonlight scattering as if struck through. Kaiyuer scrambled to reform her defense, but Purple Armor's might smashed through again, sending her flying back several steps. He bore down on Lan Muzi with murderous intent, as if he would utterly pulverize him. Lan Muzi gritted his teeth and forced himself to his feet. The Yangwood blade flared again, and for a moment, battle armor engraved with the words Yangmu Yin coalesced around him. The surge of spirit power stabilized his wounds and held his injuries at bay. He knew that if he didn't fight with everything he had, he wouldn't walk away from this. Eighth spirit ability, Yangguan Avenue, he roared, and the Yangwood blade traced out a dazzling golden arc, expanding into a colossal blade of light that bore down on Purple Armor like the first sun at dawn, blinding, searing, determined to cut through anything in its path. Good, good! Purple Armor laughed loudly, his face ferocious and rough. He flexed his fists and charged like a thunderbolt, meeting the golden light blade head-on. Boom! When they collided, a brutal fluctuation of energy ripped outward like a storm sweeping the earth. Lan Muzi's Yangguan Avenue clashed with Purple Armor's fists, and the wild force shook the air, ripping up dust and even bending smaller trees. For a second, panic flitted through Lan Muzi's mind. Despite the power of his technique, Purple Armor showed no sign of fear. The edge of his light seemed to matter little against that raw strength. Continue. Lan Muzi poured every reserve of spirit power into the blade, forcing it forward. Purple Armor, grinning fiercely, simply met the attack without giving ground. Not enough! Not enough! Purple Armor roared, then shifted his stance and unleashed a unique boxing technique that concentrated explosive force at the tips of his fists. He struck precisely at the center of the light blade. Bang! The shock was thunderous. The world seemed to tremble as a shockwave burst from the point of impact. Trees snapped, sand and dust flew, and the wasteland around them shuddered as if the end of the world had arrived. Author's note: after today's revision, the Big Shot with 10,000 character updates is back. Thanks for all the recent support and loyalty from every reader. Special thanks to Big Shot Sanyang Guang, Big Shot Kuanglang Xing, and reader 1T74909812994304 for their generous donations. Update status: popularity bonus update 21490, plus 1 update, average subscription bonus update 4036, plus 1 update, donation bonus update 1208, plus 2 updates. That's 3 basic updates, plus 8 chapters still owed and some bonus chapters. There are still 15 chapters left to write. Are we even having a real weekend anymore? Also, a small plea: consider saving donation money for a birthday present for your mom instead. That would be even better. It's not that the author doesn't want to add more updates. Moms should come first. Chapter 160, Purple Lightning Shakes the Clouds. After a brief, brutal clash, both combatants were forced back several steps. Lan Muzi's face had gone pale. The Yangwood blade trembled in his hands. Purple Armor staggered too, only managing to steady himself after retreating a couple of paces, clearly having paid a heavy price. I didn't expect a little rat like you to have some skill, Purple Armor sneered, his eyes burning with renewed killing intent. He hunched forward, ready to strike again at any moment. Lan Muzi felt the pressure tighten around his chest. The enemy showed no intention of stopping. Damn it! Why is this guy so hard to handle? Lan Muzi cursed inwardly. Purple Armor was not only terrifyingly strong in body, but possessed an immense mental force that allowed him no real respite. Still, Lan Muzi had one last card to play. He took a steady breath, gripped his blade with both hands, and unleashed everything he had. 7th Spirit Ability, Sanya Yangguang. 3 golden blades of light sliced through the air from the Yangwood blade, each scorching the atmosphere as if it could ignite the sky. The 3 golden arcs stacked like overlapping peaks, barreling straight toward Purple Armor. A flash of disdain crossed Purple Armor's face. He clenched his fists and answered with a thunderous punch. Fist winds ripped into the 3 golden blades like a storm. Boom, boom, boom. 3 explosions rang out as light met fist. The dazzling flares went off in succession, but Purple Armor's power was overwhelming. One by one, the golden blades shattered under his blows, reduced to scattered motes of light that were blown away by the wind. That all you've got? He mocked, and surged forward. His fist, heavy as an anvil, crashed toward Lan Muzi's chest. Lan Muzi's expression instantly changed. He raised his blade to intercept, but Purple Armor's fist struck with mountain-like force. The Yangwood blade was knocked aside. Lan Muzi's body sailed through the air and slammed down hard, a mouthful of blood spraying from his lips. Despite the pain, a fierce light gleamed in his eyes as he shouted, "Now!" Kaiyur, until then waiting high above, was suspended in the moonlit sky. If she had fought from the start, Lan Muzi might not have been pushed down so quickly, but that alone wouldn't be enough. Against an opponent like Purple Armor, a drawn-out contest would be fatal. One had to buy time while the other gathered everything, then land a single shattering blow. Kaiyuer transformed into her youthful form, flawlessly beautiful and cold as frost, like a bright moon hung high and still. With the night now fully come and the moon clear and bright, her figure under its light seemed sacred. Her hands rose slowly, gathering a mysterious power. Ninth spirit ability. Heavenly moonfall, she murmured. Moonlight wrapped her body. From the heavens a vast silver column of light descended, striking straight at purple armor. The beam held a solemn majesty, a force that felt like the moon god himself had come to smite the earth. Purple armor's pupils shrank. He could feel the terrible power set against him. But fear had no place in him. This is the meaning of battle, he roared. The armor beast tribe had always faced life and death head-on. Purple armor's fists tensed. He gathered power and leaped, purple lightning tearing away behind him like a storm. His fists were like twin mountains surging to meet the moonlit pillar. There was no dread in his eyes, only a savage joy. For him, to fight was to live. Through ceaseless battle, his tribe survived. Through battle, he walled off grief and carved out the visage of a general who could make his people endure. Purple lightning shakes the clouds, he bellowed. Purple lightning poured from his fists like a tidal wave and struck the silver column head-on. The contact unleashed a deafening roar, a singular eruption that swallowed all other sound. The wasteland shuddered. Dust devils spun as nearby trees and rocks quivered under the shock. In that moment, purple armor felt thunder flood his veins. His fists, erupting with volcanic force, rammed into the descending moonlight. The collision unleashed blinding flashes, seeming to tear the ground apart. Muscles bulging and veins standing out on his forehead, purple armor gritted his teeth and drove his inner energy like a battering ram, trying to crush the heavenly power utterly. "Break for me!" he cried, and a column of purple lightning leapt skyward like a roaring dragon to meet the moonbeam. The two forces intertwined, forming a massive energy vortex that rent the air between heaven and earth. Kaiyuer's face tightened. She had not expected purple armor to counter her ninth spirit ability directly. She hastily poured in more spirit power, trying to bolster the silver pillar, but purple armor's fists struck like lightning through the defense. Crack! The moonlight column splintered beneath the force. Silver radiance scattered. Kaiyuer trembled, a trickle of blood at the corner of her mouth. Her face was ashen, disbelieving. Her proud ninth ability lay broken by a single ferocious strike. Purple armor began to savor his victory, but heat flared at his side, and the world seemed to burn with a new light. Lan Muzi, having forced his injuries into check with a secret technique, spat blood onto the yangwood blade. Crimson stained the steel, but his eyes were steady, threaded with desperate determination. He knew this was the moment of no return. If they failed now, all would be lost. The yangwood blade blazed with unprecedented radiance, as if soaked in the afterglow of a dying sun. It carried a scorching, oppressive power, the culmination of Lan Muzi's life of bladecraft condensed into one final strike. Ninth spirit ability, sunset returns to the mountain, he cried. Lan Muzi hurled himself forward, the blade a comet trailing ember light toward purple armor. The air sizzled as the two forces converged, the fate of the battle hanging on the edge of that single desperate blow.